Good afternoon and welcome to the Federal Communications Commission Advisory Committee on Diversity and Digital Empowerment Virtual Summit on a Roadmap to Tech Jobs. My name is Anna Gomez. I chair this committee, and I am so pleased that you have joined us. The fact that you are here shows me that you will be or will support and mentor tomorrow's tech leaders. Who knows? One of you could create the next hottest device or app, become a thought leader on tech policy, or be the next chair of the FCC. I don't want to take a lot of time because I'd like to get to the program quickly. But first, I'd like to give a big welcome to Dr. Dominique Harrison from the Joint Center for Political and Economic Studies, who has recently joined the committee. Dr. Harrison, would you like to give a brief hello?
Hi there, so happy to be there for this great event today, and I'm excited to hear all the great things that our panelists have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Harrison. Welcome again. And now I'd like to pass the baton to the committee's fabulous Vice Chair, Heather Gate. Heather.
Thank you, Anna. And I'd like to begin by thanking all the students and the mentors and everybody else that's joined us today. As a former student of science and technology myself, I'm excited to see this level of enthusiasm for everybody that's joined us today. But I would like to just take a couple of minutes to share some insights that I gained as a student as well, from teachers, mentors, colleagues, families, both biological and chosen. There's 4 things that I carry with me in life, and I hope that you consider them. The first one is be a critical thinker. As a student of science and technology, you're already required to analyze, interpret, infer, evaluate, and reflect. These critical thinking skills are not only essential within the tech sector, but also you carry them through life, and because they allow you to be able to really surf through the abundance of information that flows to us on a daily basis. So you're able to review information and misinformation and make critical judgments on what will advance you in life. Second, don't be afraid to think outside the box. Now, this may be a little cliche, but I think it's very important to be reminded about it, because we know that without people that dared to think outside the box, we wouldn't have what we have today. We wouldn't be who we are today. So science, technology makes it possible for us to explore and build new things and explore new realms. So for a better future, we need students like you to explore new grounds and never be limited by how things are done today. You can make us better. Number 3, expand your interdisciplinary knowledge. As a student of science and technology, always take time to familiarize yourself with other subjects. One of the best things that I ever did as a student of computer science was to take some classes in a master's degree in public administration, and that helped expand my horizons and adopt those skills that are transferable and will actually make you a better worker in the tech sector or an entrepreneur. The last thing is have a diverse cheer section. The cheer section can consist of your family members, friends, teachers, mentors. It's so important to have those people cheering for you, but it also is important to have people that challenge you. And by challenge you, I do not mean haters. Keep the haters out of the cheer section. Just make sure that you have somebody who keeps you honest and pushes you beyond where you think you need to be. So finally, I just wanted to, again, welcome you all and hope that you will learn new strategies and tools that you can take with you as you prepare to join the tech sector. So thank you. And now I'd like to welcome the chair of the Diversity in Tech Working Group, the illustrious Dr. Turner Lee.
Hi, thank you, Heather, for that gracious introduction. And to all of you that are listening today, welcome. We are so excited to actually have this workshop today. And I want to echo what Heather has actually indicated and really put it in layperson's terms that you got this, you can do this. There should be nothing that stands in your way. I work in tech as a fellow, a researcher, and I'm a sociologist. And if I, Nicole Turner Lee, who is not just the chair of this subgroup, but also a person who works at the Brookings Institution, which is the world's leading think tank, I think anybody can do it. And so I welcome all of you, and I continue to be a cheerleader without even knowing your names. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who is a student and not a student who has joined, because it takes a village to actually bring people together. I also want to, in this really short period of time, bring thanks and greetings to our outgoing chairperson of the Federal Communications Commission. Chairman Ajit Pai is the reason why people like Ana Gomez and Heather Gade are able to continue the journey of ensuring that there's more diversity in communications. And Chairman Pai has just been one unstoppable person when it comes to the rechartering of this advisory committee and allowing us to do this type of very special and important work. I, in this role as the chair of the subgroup on diversity in tech, know that even in spite of some of the challenges that we hear around tech, that there's a light at the end of the tunnel when it comes to diversity and inclusion of people of color and women. And then I want to say thank you. If you don't know who they are, you will learn their names today, one of them coming right up after me, to the committee that put this together. Under the leadership of Rosa Mendoza, who will speak next, Deb Elam, Marita Coley, Dominique Harrison, all fantastic and exemplary women of color who have actually put this series today together, who in their leadership recognize the importance of us sometimes not talking to ourselves in Washington, D.C., but talking to the people who matter, which are you all that have actually chimed in today. So with that, I would just love to say greetings again. I will stop talking so we can get to the meat of this. And I'm so proud about today because, again, you matter and you can do this. Thank you. And I'll pass it right now over to Rosa Mendoza, who chairs the subgroup, who is responsible for putting today's event together. Rosa?
Thank you, Nicole. Good afternoon. Buenas tardes. As mentioned, my name is Rosa Mendoza, and I'm the president and CEO of Alvanta. I'm so glad so many people are able to join us today for what I hope will be a very interesting and useful conversation. Before we get started, I want to thank the folks that made this event possible. It takes a team, the Federal Communications Commission's Advisory Committee on Diversity and Digital Empowerment, FCC staff, and especially our Diversity in the Tech Sector Working Group. Thank you all for the work you've done today to make this conversation a reality. The title of our event is A Roadmap to Tech Jobs. Before we get to the content of our program, we should take a moment to consider what exactly it is that we're talking about. When we talk about tech jobs, a lot of people think, and understandably so, about the technology industry. They picture people working to design microchips, computer software, or maybe those dancing robots that we saw, about a week ago all over the internet. And that's absolutely true that those are tech jobs, but there are also tech jobs in telemedicine, telecommunications, media, entertainment, and even in agriculture. Tech jobs exist everywhere. Innovation is transforming the way we live, work, grow, and heal, and also connect with family and friends. So if tech jobs are everywhere, then the skills we're going to talk about today are the skills you will need to go anywhere. Navigating the job market, thinking strategically about your education, developing professional networks, and demonstrating the professionalism every employer is looking for. When we're talking about the jobs of the future, we're really talking about people. We're talking about you and how each person is going to navigate an economy that is changing faster and faster every single day. The challenge can feel a little intimidating and overwhelming, but we've got a terrific lineup of professionals and thought leaders here today to talk about how individuals from diverse communities can make sure they are ready for technology and innovation-based society. And now it's my pleasure to hand it over to my colleague, Deborah Elam, who will introduce our keynote speaker and moderate our first panel conversation. Deb.
Thank you, Rosa. Thank you. And thank you all for attending and participating. So exciting about today that so many of you are able to join and glean from what we're learning. Kiana, if you would join me. I have the pleasure of introducing our keynote speaker. She is Kiana Cave. Kiana is a 22-year-old, I'm going to say that again, 22-year-old scientist and entrepreneur. Her work has been recognized by numerous magazines and publications, including Forbes 30 Under 30, Glamour Magazine Woman of the Year, and Entrepreneurs Magazine Young Millionaires. And she'll talk a little bit more about why she's gotten that honor. Her passion is around empowering young women to pursue STEM careers. Right now, she is on hiatus from pursuing a chemical engineering degree at the University of Michigan at Ann Arbor to pursue her latest pharmaceutical startup, which again, she'll talk about. Thank you, Kiana, for joining us, and over to you.
Thank you so much for having me. And hi, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you all today. And of course, thank you to the FCC's Advisory Committee on Diversity and Digital Empowerment for having me. As Ms. Deb said, I'm Kiana, and I'm a 22-year-old scientist and entrepreneur from New Orleans. Everything that I talk about today is going to revolve around the power of mentorship and hard work. I went from being this confused high school student trying to figure out what I wanted to do with my life to having such clarity about my future and my goals and knowing exactly what I wanted to do and the roadmap to get there. But that wouldn't have been possible at all without the mentors that were in my life every step of the way. So what does a mentor look like? And it's probably not what you're thinking. A mentor could be anything from a teacher to a friend that you look up to, or even someone who has the career that you hope to have one day. In high school, I was really behind in math. I started off high school, okay, not behind, but I think I was in one of the regular math classes. And in order to do the engineering program at my high school, you had to be in the advanced math classes or like the AP classes, like calculus. And so I felt very intimidated by that because I was already feeling so behind. And I walked into the math teacher's classroom one day after school, and I just asked him if he could help prepare me so that I could take calculus the next year. And surprisingly, he was very open to that. And he actually met with me once a week, every week over the summer. That's a lot of hours that this teacher put in to help me catch up. And by the time that I graduated high school, I was one of the top math people in the class and was very prepared for the math courses in college. So when you think of a mentor, it could be anybody who is willing to help you and keep you on track and keep you accountable along the way. So even if that's a friend or again, someone who has the career that you hope to have one day. I've even reached out to people on LinkedIn. And that's another really good resource to use. I think I had a LinkedIn in high school and I was probably one of the only people, but I really recommend that too. And another thing I want to talk about is while mentorship is very important, I would say that actually getting to that point in your life where you feel happy and you have that successful STEM career that you want, it's 10% mentorship, but it's 90% hard work. So I would say build positive relationships with the teachers if you're in middle and high school or college. They want to help you at all ages. Show up to their office hours, show up after class, ask for help. And another thing, one of my teachers is actually the person responsible for one of my biggest projects because she was the one that recommended I do it. So I really recommend science fairs. And I started doing research maybe my freshman or sophomore year of high school. And because I'm from New Orleans, the BP oil spill really affected us here. And during that time, I started doing research on all of the different impacts that the oil spill actually had on the surrounding areas. And that research was later funded. I ended up getting $1.2 million in funding for the research. And so all of that started because I did that research and then entered it in a science fair. So I would highly recommend doing science fairs as well. And then going to career fairs if you're in college. joining things like NSBE and SWE, though that's the National Society for Black Engineers and the Society for Women Engineers. I actually got my first internship at Intel through NSBE. So all of these things are things that you can do to sort of get to that place in your career that you really want to be. And the last thing that I would say, mindset is really important. And it's also the biggest challenge, I think, for a lot of people. Staying focused and on track, I think, is a lot easier said than done a lot of the times. But what I like to do is think of life as a long string of right nows. One of my mentors actually told me this. But if you think of life as a long string of right nows, you can remember not to waste any of them. So when you're procrastinating, or if there's a big assignment that you really dread having to do, just remember, think of life as a long string of right nows. What do you want to be doing in this very moment? And what is going to end up propelling your life to where you want to be in the long run? Always be thinking about the future and what the impacts of the present are on your future. And if you can keep that mindset, then I think you'll be really solid. Another thing to maintain a really good mindset is to stay in those study groups, get close with similar-minded people. I remember in college, I joined so many organizations that just surrounded me with amazing, incredible people. We studied together, and we were all sort of in that same group of people who maybe we never went to parties, or maybe we never got to do some of the things other people were doing in college. But I do know now that all of those people that I met and hung out with in college are doing amazing things today. And I'm so proud of them, and I'm proud of myself for everything that we were able to accomplish, thinking back to our freshman year when we all met each other. So I would say definitely find those people that can keep you accountable and keep you on track wherever you are. That could be in middle school, high school, or college. And I would say one thing for the teachers: please try not to alienate URMs. I have so many stories and experiences in all aspects of my life, middle school, high school, college, where I felt so alienated, and it really impacted my ability to do well sometimes. And so I would say focus on treating everybody equally and giving everybody the help that they deserve. And so, yeah, with that, I think make sure that you have a really good mentor. It could be a teacher, friend that you look up to, or someone in the career that you hope to have. Remember that it's not all just mentorship, it's also hard work. Enter science fairs and keep that mindset. Stay focused and stay on track. And I think you'll be really solid. And thank you again for having me. And always feel free to reach out to me. I'm on social media. It's at Kiana Cave. I think my name should be displayed, so it's just at my name. And feel free to reach out if you have any questions. I love when people reach out to me. So thank you so much.
Kiana, thank you so much for those words of encouragement, particularly coming from somebody in the age group that we're trying to reach. A few questions. We have time for a few questions. We've gotten a few things in from the audience. Talk a little bit about your current project. I know you're on leave, if you will, from University of Michigan, but talk about that project and what it is, because it's very exciting.
So when my last project ended, I ended up developing an oil spill dispersant. And so it's something that is used after an oil spill to sort of clear any of those microtoxins that formed in the water after the spills. And that was the project I talked about that I did all through high school and for part of college. And when that project ended, I immediately started a new project, and that was a non-hormonal birth control pill. So basically, I was struggling with my own birth control. And this goes back to that mindset that I was talking about of, if there's a problem that you have, try to start thinking of ways to fix it. yourself. Don't ever think that there's something that you can't do. And, it might be a little crazy, but I was a 21-year-old sitting in a dorm room and thinking, how can I create a pill that doesn't give women side effects? And so that's what I decided to pursue and raised $2 million for so far. And we have a lab out in Palo Alto. So yeah, it's exciting.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. I have another question from the audience. You talked a lot about having mentors and so forth. So when you have a relationship with the mentor, talk a little bit about how to make that effective. Like, how do you, as the mentee, show up, or how should you show up, please? Your advice there.
I would say one of the hardest things is to feel like you're not burdening someone, especially when you have a lot of questions. I think people really want to help more than you would expect or think that they would. And so show up with your questions and make sure that if they give you a piece of advice, go out and do the work and then come back to them having done that and then ask for more.
Great, thank you. One other question that's come in, and this will take you back a few years. When you're leaving high school, you think about wanting to get, you talked about the type of math class that you needed to take. If you could look back, are there any particular classes you would recommend that students in high school take to prepare them for that kind of STEM major? Something, maybe you say, boy, if I had taken this almost in ninth grade, it would have set me up better for 10th or 11th grade and then college. Anything there? Yeah.
I would say any AP course that you can possibly take as it relates to STEM, like AP biology, AP chemistry, AP calculus, both of them, there are two. Really try to focus on all of those AP STEM classes because colleges really love that when you're applying, but you can also use those credits when you get to college. So you're starting off with a set amount of credits and you'll be set up for your entire career that way.
So in many cases, if you start college with credits already, it may be even you can get out a little earlier just from a cost standpoint, right? Where families are trying to manage tuition costs, it might enable you to not have to do summers or anything, right?
Exactly.
Great, great. Any parting words from you? We're going to wrap this up and go on to our panel in a second. Anything you'd like to leave us with?
Yeah, I would say, again, thank you for having me, but I would say there are going to be a lot of challenges that come up in this process, wherever you are, whether that be in middle school all the way to maybe you're about to graduate college, or maybe you already have the job of your dreams. There will be challenges. You will feel discouraged, and I recommend having that mindset of just I can do anything and I can be anything that I want to be because you truly can. But remember, it does take hard work. So if you're willing to show up, then I believe you can have anything you want.
It's like Nicola said, you got this.
You got this.
Kiana, thank you so much for joining us today. You at 22 years old, I just want to reiterate that, a scientist, an entrepreneur, somebody who's out there just knocking the barriers down and making it happen. Thank you again for joining us and for your words. And take care. Have a great weekend. Thank you.
Bye.
I would now like to transition to our first panel. So I will ask our first panelists to join me on screen, if you will. I guess I'm used to saying join me on stage or at the podium, but since we're virtual, it'll be join me on screen. Thank you all. I'm going to do a quick introduction. Our panelists, and thank you to them again, all people I know or have come to know as we're planning this. It's important to have people who are in the field, in the work. We have people on this call who've dialed in, over 300 of you, I'm told, who are either students yourselves or your counselors and advisors working with students. Sometimes you don't know, where do I go? What do I do? This is going to give you a real roadmap. That's why we call this a roadmap, some tidbits. It may not be that everything resonates, but if you can glean a couple of things from this discussion to share with students and to share with others, then I think we will have been successful. I'm going to go through some quick introductions, and I'll just ask brief introductions so that we get to the meat of this. And I'll just ask whoever I'm talking about to just raise your hand or so that we can know who I'm talking about. Roslyn Hudnall, my dear friend. Roslyn is a recognized global thought leader, She was head of HR and corporate affairs at the Intel Corporation, as well as head of the Intel Foundation. So she was very much at the top of the house. She launched, when she ran diversity for that company, a $1 billion diversity and technology initiative. She was in the World Economic Forum Internet for All steering committee and led a decade of research focused on equity and inclusion. Welcome, Roz. Dr. Calvin Mackey is an award-winning mentor, inventor, author, former engineering professor, and successful entrepreneur. Dr. Mackey most recently founded an organization called STEM NOLA, which she'll talk about. But in short, it's a nonprofit organization which is focused on exposing, inspiring, and engaging communities around opportunities in STEM. Since 2013, STEM NOLA has engaged over 50,000 K-12 students in hands-on project-based STEM activities. Welcome, Dr. Mackey. Stacy Mangum is a principal systems engineer and group leader at the MITRE Corporation in McLean, Virginia. She spent over 35 years as a systems engineer in a variety of roles. She's currently group leader in the Systems Engineering Innovation Center and the technical lead for grants management blockchain proof of concept effort to demonstrate how blockchain technologies can be used to gain efficiencies in government's award and management of grants. Phew, that was a mouthful. Today, in addition to representing MITRE Corporation, she is representing the Links Incorporated, the Eastern area specifically, where in her spare time, if you will, she chairs the Eastern Area STEM Initiative. Welcome, Stacy. Robert Vaughn, Robert, there you are. Robert is the Vice President and National Instructor at Empower Incorporated. He is a wealth of knowledge around training and curriculum and development. Robert brings over 42 IT certifications and a passionate commitment to developing untapped tech talent in underserved communities. He delivers this via a trauma-informed approach to educating older students, older meaning in that sort of 18 to 24-year-old category. Welcome, Robert. And then last but certainly not least is Donna White. Donna is the East Coast Regional Program Director at Black Girls Code. She is responsible for overseeing development, evaluation, and improvement of all of the Black Girls Code's programs. She's passionate about youth, girls, women's issues of inclusion and equity as they relate to education and access. And the one thing she says she is, in addition to all of that, is a lifelong learner. Welcome to all of our panelists. Again, thank you for being here. I'm going to jump right in, and Dr. Mackey, I'm going to start with you. You know, we're talking about the frame of this today is a roadmap to tech jobs. So if a tech job, and Rosa gave a good explanation of that, if a tech job is at the end of the road, or if that's the goal, where does the road begin?
Thank you, Deb, for having me, and thank you to the people who put this together in the FCC. Where does the road begin? At STEM NOLA, we believe the road begins at the cradle. What we've done is that we've built a cradle to career pipeline. We live in a nation where the NFL and the NBA make sure that every Black and brown boy touches a football or basketball before the age of 4, before they enter school. So if we're going to start talking about tech jobs, we've got to think like the NBA and the NFL and make sure that we begin to offer STEM to our kids literally coming out of the cradle. We cannot wait till they get to the schoolhouse. We live in a nation where basketball and football is ubiquitous. If a kid plays basketball or football in school, when they get out of school, guess what's available? Basketball and football. But if they go to school and they are lucky to be exposed to coding, or they're lucky to be exposed to technology, when they leave school, guess what they're not exposed to in their community? Coding and technology and science and technology. So we have to make sure that STEM is as ubiquitous as sports, especially in low income, low resource communities. So Dave, to answer your question, we have to get to the end, we have to start at the beginning. And the beginning is not in college, it's not in high school, it's not even in middle school. Literally is when a kid is coming out of the womb. And we have to begin to offer STEM like we offer early childhood education and literacy to kids.
Great, thank you, Dr. Mackey. Donna, how can we prepare students in middle school because that's an area I know you focus on. How do we prepare them for future careers in tech? And talk about some of the partnerships there.
Thank you, Deb, and thank you to the FCC for this wonderful summit today. I think it's important for organizations like Black Girls Code, which was founded to really empower girls of color, ages 7 to 17. And we do that through a number of different ways. So it's a matter of working in our communities, especially in under-resourced communities where opportunities may not be as available. And it's important to be able to provide exposure to the opportunities. So I think that organizations like Black Girls Code is just one piece of the puzzle for preparing students. It's important to make sure that we're engaging K through 12 schools because students are there most of the day. So we know that some states have made commitments to computer science education, and we hope to see more. It's important for community organizations to ensure that STEM is a part of their programming. And it's also important for colleges and universities and tech companies to work with all of these institutions to ensure that we are, as Dr. Mackey mentioned, starting at the cradle. We need students to understand that there are opportunities that begin way before you get to middle and high school and even into college. And we need to work as the community to ensure that we are offering these opportunities. So I think it's really imperative that especially the tech companies make a commitment. And it's not just with a diversity statement, but it's really creating and working in partnership with the local communities and organizations to ensure that we are creating these opportunities for all students.
Great. Thank you, Donna. Robert, let's hear from you. You know, you work with, as I would say, a little bit older students. So you're kind of in that 18 to 24-year, 25-year-old range. What are some of the critical factors you've dealt with to recruit, to train, and to place diverse, what I'll say, young adult students in underserved communities into tech jobs? Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, thanks, Deb, and thanks to the FCC. And it's definitely an honor to be on this panel with such distinguished guests. I think Dr. Mackey hit it right. It starts early from the cradle. Unfortunately, I'm personal living witness to it. I came from Chicago. I didn't know anything about an IT field until I was around 22 years old, which is when I got into tech. Prior to that, only thing I knew was I was either going to play football or go to the military. Not two bad options, but that's the only options I thought was available. So getting into the technology field, I knew I wasn't going to college. I didn't think I was smart enough for college, didn't have the money for college. I ended up taking a tech training program and got an IT certification within the 6-month program. And that took me all the way to becoming a chief information security officer for GM Financial and Torchmark, travel the world, design programs to train thousands of people, and then start my own IT company and sell it for, you know, a great profit. So for me, be a part of Empower now these last 4 years, it was my way and my privilege of being able to go back to the communities I come from Chicago, and we're all across the country at Empower. We're everywhere from Baltimore all the way across to California and in between. And what we do is we go into those communities and say, we know there's young people. The reason why you're not in this IT is because you don't see yourself in the picture. So they can see me and others like this distinguished panel. They understand that they're not reinventing anything. This legacy has already been passed down to them and open up doors. And so we talk to the churches, we talk to the barbershops, we talk to the colleges that's rejected students. We're out there everywhere just letting people know if you have 18 to 24-year-olds, what we know 100% is that there's some untapped talent and brilliance. And a lot of times they don't see themselves in technology, but what's missing in this industry is that talent and that uniqueness that they can bring to the table. And so what I would like to say to young people, 18, 24-year-olds, 25-year-olds, and even beyond, it doesn't matter where you start, it's what you do with the opportunities around you. There's technology everywhere. What we try to do at Empower is close the digital gap, and that is providing our students with laptops and access to the internet. But we also teach our classes real time. It's live. It's not one of those things we're going to sign you up and it's just, you know, self-paced. Because what we know is that our students do deal with trauma, and they're dealing with so many barriers. They need to be walked through. When I got into this business, I actually wanted to drop out the first 3 times and fail my first 3 certification exams and didn't think I was smart enough. And so what we want to do is create an environment where it is trauma informed. We want them to know that even failure is part of success. We like to say fail means first attempt at learning. And that's true for everything. And so what we want to do is just really build a community of STEM thinking scholars, so that they understand that if they get into this IT, it can take them far. I've invested into restaurants. I started a venture capital company. So IT is not simply something that you got to do at 9 to 5. It can actually launch doors and open up and create resources for you to be an entrepreneur and invest in other things that you want to do. So don't just simply think of it as, I don't want to do technology because I want to sit in front of a computer. There's so many different areas of technology where you can go, and it can open up doors for other ventures that you have later on in life.
Robert, thank you. I love that. Fail equals first attempt at learning. I love that. Y'all remember that. Failure is not failure. It's first attempt at learning, because sometimes you have to fail to learn. So thank you for sharing that. Very, very insightful. Stacy, I'd like to bring you into the conversation. And again, you're kind of wearing two hats today, the MITRE Corporation and the Eastern area of the links. Thank you very much. As you lead the STEM efforts there. Talk about the power of collaborating with community partners and some of the existing platforms that you have for STEM outcomes. Just give us some insight on that, please.
Thank you, Deb, again. And,
you're fine. You're fine. You're fine.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you again, Deb, for the opportunity. And we appreciate the FCC in offering this panel discussion. Again, I am with the Links Incorporated, the Eastern Area STEM Leadership Council. Basically, we support programming for ages grades K through 12. We partner with organizations such as Donna White and the Black Girls Code organization. That's an existing organization, and they have a platform that we use to help our members become more comfortable with STEM. Some of our members, they do not have a STEM background, so we wanted to make it easy by supplementing their mentorship program. This makes it very easy for our members to take their existing programming, whether that be mentorship in other areas, any kind of cultural or educational programs, and they can add a STEM component, especially in the cases where they are mentoring girls. And so we have a 5-phased approach that we take with Black Girls Code to first get our members into the programming, to help them feel comfortable. So we have them volunteer with Black Girls Code. And then after they volunteer with Black Girls Code, then we bring that into our own programming so that our chapters, our more than 78 chapters, they can add this to their plan for the year and invite their students to the Black Girl Code workshops. And so now we want to make the community aware. So we are currently in phase 3, where we are leveraging Black Girls Code and their experts to talk about the state of STEM and raise the awareness within the community. So that's just one example of the existing platforms. We also have relationships with the National Society of Black Engineers, and we also have a program with the National Wildlife Federation. Through all of these programs, we're able to reach our goals more effectively and more rapidly. And so that's how we leverage the existing platforms to do what we do, to encourage students to choose STEM as a career.
Great, thank you, Stacy. And I just wanna, that's a really good insight and perspective. Again, I'm hearing partnerships, right? I'm hearing partnerships, leveraging partnerships as a theme coming through with everyone. I just want to say to the audience, we are taking questions from the audience, I think, so please go ahead and queue them up, and then somebody's feeding them to me, so you can go ahead and start doing that. But I want to go into to Roz now, Roz Hutno. Roz, you were at the very top of a Fortune 500 company, probably a Fortune 50 company, quite frankly. You focused a lot on skills and 21st century skills. You know, given that knowledge, talk about that a little bit. Talk about technology and jobs of the future and what's needed as you look at it very much from the employer standpoint.
Great, thank you, Deb, and what an honor to be with all of this brilliance on screen today. So let me take a minute to make sure that our audience really understands how technology has transformed society. So, you know, I spent a lot of time with the World Economic Forum, and we talked about the first industrial revolution. And think about it, that was when the steam engine came about and how that impacted the manufacturing of our country. Then about 100 years later, you had the second, and that was when you had electricity and mass production started to happen. Then the third, which is really what we all grew up in, was really this, what happened with IT systems and automation and the personal computer that came in. And so now what you're seeing is what kind of World Economic Forum is calling this fourth industrial revolution, which is kind of the cyber physical. And think about, we are moving towards having 60 billion connected devices around the world. And what does that mean? Well, I worked for Intel, Gordon Moore. Anybody that's in engineering and most people in that space understand Moore's Law. And Moore's Law and how that's impacted jobs and the requirement of jobs. And basically what it meant is that we drove the research and technology that basically said that the amount of, transistors on integrated circuit was going to double every couple years. And even though that's slowed down, that is the reason why technology has gone from big mainframes in a closet to hands. So if you think about what that means for technology jobs, think about what that means for people working in the movie industry right now. Think about what it means for the fact that first run movies, we have now experienced that inside of our homes. And so inside of Intel, what we really began to look at was how technology was going to transform not just Intel, but think about Intel really was the company that enabled technology and technology jobs everywhere. So I always talk to people that think technology jobs is just engineering and computer science. There are a whole lot of technologies in medicine. If you look at, quite frankly, the COVID vaccine and how that has come into play, that is all about technology and changing how cells talk to each other. And then you think about what we looked at in terms of just even the last year. I think one of the most important things for students to understand is this. When you apply to a company like Intel for a job and you have checked off all those great things you've done in engineering or computer science, guess what we're interviewing you for? Do you have critical thinking? Do you have analytical skills? Do we see you collaborating across teams of engineers and computer sciences around the world, some in Israel, some in China, some in Portland, Oregon, some in Santa Clara, California? How are you with conflict resolution? How are you with your communication skills? So when I looked at building skills, yes, we absolutely were very strong in building skills in STEM. And what I will say is this. We began to get very focused, Deb, not just on STEM broadly, because STEM also takes us into medicine, but we got very focused on the E of STEM, engineering, computer science, getting our kids to recognize, take computer science early. Think about engineering early. It's not just science and math. Yes, those are the gatekeeping courses. You have to be really good at that. But understanding that skills in STEM is not just STEM. It really is how you come into the workplace and show up with those skills.
That's great. Thank you. I feel like we are dropping some knowledge today, y'all. I hope you're picking up on it. What you're saying is it's about the STEM skills, but it's about the other stuff too. The stuff, how you show up, what you do, who are you holistically as a potential employee if you're in that space of applying for a job. Thank you. That was very powerful. I'm going to flip back around to Dr. Mackey. And I know when Robert was talking, he shared a little bit about his journey, his personal journey, and why it fuels his passion for what he's doing now. And thank you for that. Dr. Mackey, I've known you a long time, and I know you have a story as well. We all have a story, but I know your story is fueling your passion. Tell us a little bit about how you went from, I'll call it the notorious Ninth Ward in New Orleans. And for those of you who don't know, the Ninth Ward in New Orleans was the area that was truly under close to 20 feet of water in Hurricane Katrina. And I know you were a Katrina survivor. How did you go from there, from that neighborhood? How did you get that spark as a kid, in high school and college? What fueled you to move into STEM? And then talk a little bit about STEM NOLA and what STEM NOLA does. So take us a little bit on your journey.
Deb, Rosalind touched my heart because it was companies like Intel, and I can name some people I'm thinking about right now when Intel was investing in colleges way before many other people. When AT&T Bell Labs was investing in, people claim not to have the solution now, and AT&T Bell Labs and Intel had the solution 20 years ago. Like Deb said, I'm from the lower 9 where we don't mind dying. I'm from that wild Magnolia, I thought I told you. I'm from back of town, Gerttown, Zion City of New Orleans. And I started college in remedial reading, developmental mathematics at Morehouse College. You know, and 3.5 years later, I finished Morehouse, #1 in mathematics, #5 in the largest class Morehouse ever graduated, magna cum laude, Phi Beta Kappa. And then I walked across the street at Georgia Tech. And when I was coming out of high school, Georgia Tech wouldn't even give me an application, but I went on to Georgia Tech and finished 3 engineering degrees, a BS, MS, and PhD in mechanical engineering. So after leaving the ninth ward of after growing up in a house with no books, where my mother went to a state-approved Negro high school, and my father dropped out of school in 8th grade to pick cotton, because of people like Rosalind and companies like Intel, people at AT&T Bell Labs, who gave me and my friends and people like us hope by coming to campus and letting us touch them, feel them, see them, and let us know the pathway to get to where we needed to be. They didn't make excuses for us. I mean, Morehouse said, Calvin, you're behind in reading, you're behind in math. We're not gonna kick you out, but we're gonna put you where you need to be, and we're gonna give you the resources necessary for you to catch up. And the investment, Roz, that I want Intel to know that you all made is paying dividends, because now that's the work I'm doing in terms of STEM NOLA. After I left Georgia Tech with my PhD, I went to Tulane and became a professor in mechanical engineering, where I was a professor for 12 years, the first and only African-American ever tenured in the history of College of Engineering at Tulane. But in the aftermath of Hurricane Katrina, Tulane decided to keep the football team, eliminate the engineering program. That's a lesson, because many of the schools today will allow many of our children to come to play football and play sports and entertain. When we start talking about admitting them to do science, technology, engineering, and mathematics, we got to have a big discussion. So what we've done with STEM NOLA is that 7 years ago, we took $100,000, my wife and I, and created what we believe is an ecosystem that we can lay on top of urban areas and engage kids from cradle to career in STEM. So we believe that we've created a high-functioning STEM community that's child-centered, adult-governed, elder rule, if you imagine those 3 concentric circles. We focus on K-12 kids in the community. The adults in our community that do the work are college kids from the local colleges. We paid over $1 million to college kids in the last 7 years for delivering services in the community. Then we overlay that with the elders, the Debs, the Rosalind, the professionals, the teachers who volunteer. So at any given time, our students can participate in those type of endeavors that Roz talked about. They can participate in science, technology, engineering, math. We don't focus on just one, because we know the world is very complex and our kids have to find themselves. And I want to end by saying this. I hate coding. When I was in my PhD program, I was like, I hate programming. And my PhD advisor said, you got code until you get out of here. Now, when you get out of here, you can hire somebody. And I say that because it's not enough to teach our children just coding, because this area of technology and STEM is so broad that they can find themselves in other places. And I believe if there's an opportunity for us now to really introduce our kids to STEM, it's through COVID. Because for the last 9 months, the entire world has been waiting on science, technology, engineering, and mathematics to save it. And we get to see the broadness of it. So at STEM NOLA, we have the parents, we have the kids, and we have the corporations sponsoring these events. We started with $100,000 of our own money. Last year, we did $2.5 million in revenue. We built a model that's scalable, transferable, and reproducible. And more importantly, Deb and you corporate people, you understand sustainability. And now we are in the process of franchising the model across the country, primarily that's with University of Illinois and with Minneapolis, so they could take the model and engage their communities also.
Thank you, Dr. Mackey. Appreciate it. Such an inspiring story, right? And I think it just shows to the folks out here, you can do it. It doesn't matter where you start. It matters where you end. And that's what the message is, I think, that everybody's sharing as part of this panel. Donna.
I'm sorry, Deb. Is that hope piece. I want to make sure that the students understand it's not enough to be smart, but you got to believe, and you got to be in situations where people believe in you. That's what made the difference. So I'm sorry.
No. That's look. Hope is important, right? Because that's what gets us up every day. That's what allows us to latch on to something, to know that we can make it when days get dark. Because days get dark for everybody, whether you're a student, college student, workplace. There are dark days, and so we do need that hope. So thank you for illuminating that. I appreciate it. Donna, talk a little bit for the benefit of the audience. Some of the kinds of places your students have ended up. I mean, I know you're working with girls, if you will, but what kind of schools have they gone to? What's happened to some of them? Because you guys have been around for a little while. Give us some insight there.
Right. So thank you. We are at a point now where we do actually have students who are pursuing post-secondary pursuits. We launched our alumni program in the fall of 2019 because at that point, that's when we started having students who were going to college or deciding what they wanted to do post high school. And so we started with our summit. We also engage our students in different activations to be able to give them real experience, real world experience, and be exposed to the cross section of technology. And so we have them involved in activations with South by Southwest and hackathons. We had a group that traveled to Japan in 2019 to work on a project. And we also have those students engaging in VGC programming. This year, we were fortunate to hire our first director of alumni programs, who has been working very closely with our group of alumni to ensure that we're providing them with access and support as they pursue whatever career they are doing. And we have students who are at North Carolina A&T, at UC Berkeley, at Spelman, and some of the other fine institutions across the country. We also have students who are taking gap years and working and trying to launch programs and launch businesses around STEM. So we are there to be able to provide additional support for those students once they decide what they want to do. We've worked with partners with many companies who have made a commitment to working with our students and being able to diversify their workforce. Just to name a few would be Xander, Zendesk, The Guardian, Zola, Nike. They provide opportunities for students either on the mentoring side or as internships, providing internships, which we understand is critical, not only for the experience, being able to put that on a resume or to build a portfolio, but as well to be exposed to people in the field who can support their work and their further education. A lot of times it's not always about what you know, but who you know. And so it's very important, especially in STEM careers, to build your board of directors, if you will, who will support your efforts and what you can do and be able to support that work and that lifelong learning that is so important. The other portion of it is that, as Dr. Mackey also mentioned, and as well as Rosalind, is that it is not just one particular area of technology. Technology permeates everything that we do. And one of the things that Black Girls Code does is we want to make sure that students understand that pretty much if you have an interest in any area, it may not be computer science, it may not be science related, but if you have an interest in any area, we guarantee that you probably can find some connection to technology. And so we want students to understand that so that they can then take those skills that they are developing and be able to utilize them across many different career options and paths that they may identify.
Thank you. Rosalind, I'm going to come back to you. Interesting question. I know you well, and I know your kids are all grown up, but if you had to roll the tape back and raise kids now, in this environment, I know you don't want to do that, but just if you would, if you would, historically, people in my generation grew up with, well, you just have to get a 4-year college degree. That is the only path. That is the only alternative. That's just what it is. And I guess based on your experience, I want to know, is that the only path? Are there multiple paths? Should we have a broader lane in terms of pathways to success? Just want to get your real life perspective on that, because I know you'll keep it real.
Yeah. Well, you know what, Deb, that's actually a really great question. And thank you all. And I mean, Dr. Mackey, the brilliance of what you've done in your life. It's interesting. So let me say this. Way back Our kids, mostly brown and black kids, a lot of times were moved into vocational education. And in many instances, that really was because they didn't believe that our kids were smart enough to go to college. And so
we lost her. She's probably gonna come back.
Okay.
can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you now. Yeah, I've had a little bit of funky things going on too, so I'm not sure what's what, if it was me. Go ahead.
So let me say this. All three of my children, my husband and I, all went to college. They all graduated from college. They all are, and interesting enough, they all got the same undergraduate degree, which was not in technology. It was an economics degree, and they're all doing vastly different things. But this is what I would say if I was raising children now. Number one, I think Black and brown students need to be integrated into thinking about starting their own businesses, being entrepreneurs. If you look at some of the richest entrepreneurs in the world, they did not go or graduate from college. Now, having said that, most of them had rich parents. So a lot of this is economic. But this is what I would say. College is about building a network and learning. And I would want our kids to step back and think about what is it they want to do in the world and how might college fit in. And we didn't really go that route, and it worked out for our kids who are blessed and privileged. But when I even step back now and look at my grandkids, it is highly likely they might not need college the same way I needed college in the same way my kids needed college, because they are going to grow up so literate in technology. They are going to grow up so understanding the world very differently. They're going to see the world very differently. And 20 years from now, corporations might not even require the same things because corporations might not exist in the same way. So I say this, and let me tell those of our young people who love sports. All three of my kids played sports in college, but they understood that they had a 1% chance of having that be their job and making money. Sports gave great experience in teamwork, collaboration, working under stress. But the reality is this: you have to step back for our kids and say, should they have some level of college? If that's the only place they're going to go learn a skill that can move them forward. But this is what I will say. I believe that if we had more Black and brown children growing up having a future passion for engineering and computer science and fixing the problems of the world, we would all be better off. So I'm not ready to say don't go to college, but what I am saying is go to Black Girls Code. I am saying Dr. Mackey hated coding, but guess what? He learned how to code, and you don't have to go to college to learn how to code, right? You don't have to go to college to learn everything. So I think for me, I would suggest that parents be as encouraging about technology as they are about putting that football or basketball in a young person's hand, and keep it real. You might not want to spend $150,000 on a college degree that isn't going to guarantee you real learning that allows you to get a salary.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's extremely helpful because, again, the model has shifted, right, in our lifetime a couple of times. And I think what you're saying is there are multiple paths to success, right? Don't lock in on one. Lock in on the one that makes sense for your child, for you. And I think that's what this has got to always be about. So thank you for being very candid about that. I want to now go to Robert. Robert, you've had to really pivot a lot this year with the way you deliver services to a lot of your students. Talk a little bit about that. We're in a pandemic. We haven't mentioned pandemic once here. I think we're all trying to forget it if possible, but talk about that because you've had to pivot in the pandemic.
Yeah, absolutely. We was teaching a traditional in-class model for the 20-year history of our company program, and COVID hit towards the end of our cohort. We took 1 week off from class, and what I did with our National Instructor Institute is regrouped. And part of that was to do a couple of things. The first thing is to make sure that we understood that transitioning to a virtual environment is not simply just cutting cameras on. That the second thing is that we was going to start with compassionate empathy. because we recognized that the students who we served was already disenfranchised and underrepresented in the tech field, in economic status, et cetera. And they was going to take the brunt, as they have, of the impacts of COVID. And so what we ended up doing was creating a new model, which we call the Teach model, which basically allowed us to, one, record lectures, and understood our students couldn't always be there live. They could still work where they could, that we provided them with social support, counseling. We got an emergency fund to help them do things like get a laptop or a mobile hotspot, and we had partners who also donated, but also we had to help with a light bill here or there. We had to help with groceries. So we wanted to make sure that our curriculum was flexible enough where students could get the support they needed at the hours that they needed. If that meant we needed to be available in the evening, sometimes weekends, and not simply this 9 to 1 schedule or 9 to 5 schedule, we wanted to start with that. The second thing we needed to do is make sure that loss of community. How do we engage our students? How do we still allow them to do peer learning and work in breakout groups, but still get hands-on labs? So we was able to make sure that they had the computers, but they can remote into live equipment and still get the hands-on labs and get the walkthrough that they need. The one thing that I'm so super proud of with our transition to this virtual environment is that I think sometimes people underestimate the grit of our kids, of kids in the communities, because they showed a lot of grit, a lot of resilience during this process. And that's exactly why corporate America needs them, because they already built for pressure. All we're really doing is just teaching them the skill. And one of the things we focus on a lot is, to the points of the earlier panelists, we don't just teach technical skills. We spend a full day every day teaching the soft skills, the emotional intelligence, how to adapt. I'm going to share this last thing, and that is we also worked with historical Black colleges. I personally trained over 1,500 HBCU students over the past couple of years. And one of the things we did is we had this digital literacy test. And we took half of our students and we showed them Black Wall Street, Black people who are in Hispanic people who are in STEM programs, et cetera. The other half we didn't, but we gave them the same test, and the students who was exposed to the brilliance of their community did phenomenally better than the other group, even though we didn't teach either one of them about actual technology. When we looked at the data, what we found was, from the students' perspective, is they had more pride. So we created a program called Culture Confidence. And what we started to see is they have to see themselves in that, but it doesn't look the same as a traditional training program. We do have to address the historical barriers and challenges our students get, the economic challenges they get, the gender challenges when we have young ladies that come to our program. So we looked at the whole thing holistically and made sure that it was centered on empathy. And then the science, the technology, the experience, the engagement, all of that need to be well thought out. And so it's turned out that our current cohort we just finished was the first one to do the whole thing virtually. We had just as good results on our certifications, on our placement. We're taking students who don't have college degrees and we're seeing them become vice presidents of organizations and technology, help desk, engineering, et cetera. And just last but not least, I'm one of those people to this day still don't have the best math skills. So you don't have to be a math magician. And to Dr. Mackey's point, I had to learn the code, but I'm not a coder. But I was able to figure out that if you're good at public speaking, you got good customer service skills, you like to do research, there's so many other tech jobs out there besides just writing software. So I just encourage you guys to just know that if you're a good person who like to write music, you'll probably be a person who like to code. If you like to dance and you like rhythms, you'll probably be a person who likes to work in cybersecurity, as I did. So there's so many different avenues. And the good thing about coding, we have a young lady in our HBCU program who ran for office. She wanted to change her community. And she lost to a white guy who had way more money. She went through our program. She got the digital literacy she needed to learn how to use social media. And she still was outspent when she ran again, but she won because she was able to galvanize her community using technology and using mobile applications. So that's the power of technology. It's not simply a 9-to-5 job, but it changes our community and allow us to do the DIY. And that is do it ourselves and invest and yield talent and tap into these students who may not want a college degree, to Rob's point, but still have a lot to offer in the technology space.
Robert, thank you. I'm about to shout over here. I feel like you're literally about to make me shout. I so appreciate what you said, because that's such a real life example of how technology can even the scale. You know, we always talk about leveling the playing field. Technology leveled the playing field for her, where her opponent had a lot of money, but she showed how technology could take her to a new height. I thank you for sharing that example. I appreciate it. Stacy, I want to loop back around to you. Two things, sort of a two-part question because you're wearing two hats. I want you to talk a little bit more about, some of the outcomes maybe that you're seeing with the programs the links are doing in the various chapters. Maybe there's one or two examples that may come to mind that you'd like to highlight. And then I'd love you to talk about MITRE a little bit and, internship opportunities or job opportunities at MITRE. How might somebody learn about those?
Okay, thank you. Our members are extremely diligent and outstanding in the work they're doing. We have over 80 chapters in the Eastern area. Those chapters have been able to take the tools and resources that we provided to them, and they've been able to deliver outstanding programs. In some of our cases for the Eastern area, we are the largest, area within the Links Incorporated or the tied with the Southern area, where we provide NSBE junior chapters. We've stood up in each of those two areas alone over 30 chapters of NSBE junior. And what that means is we've taught those students, we've organized them, they've established their chapters. They
talk about what NSBE Junior is, please.
NSBE Junior is a junior arm of the National Society of Black Engineers, and so that was mentioned by our keynote speaker early on. NSBE is the largest student-run organization pretty much in the world, and basically through NSBE you can get exposure to STEM as you would through some of these other organizations that are serving with us on our panel today. And so within the Eastern area, we have over 30 chapters that we've established, and we are in the process of establishing more. Now, what my committee of 7 outstanding members have done at the direction of our Eastern Area Director, Shawana Tucker Sims, as well as our Program Director, Rhonda Crowder, we have created an Eastern Area toolkit, which we have provided to you and uploaded to the FCC site. In that toolkit, we've given our chapters a step-by-step guidebook, and we call it a STEM roadmap, similar to the title of this panel today. Basically, in that roadmap, based upon the maturity level of your chapter, we specify tools that you can use to mentor or guide youth in the areas of STEM. So that's one of the ways that we've used that resource, and the NSBE junior chapters, they're stood up, and what we do is we offer Black girls coding workshops as supplements to those existing programs and new programs. In addition to the STEM roadmap, many of our chapters now are creating what we call video vignettes. And through those video vignettes, you get to see real life professionals who have done what these students aspire to do. Because if you can see it, then what? You can believe it. So through our video vignette series, we are featuring our members, our connecting links, which are our husbands, and our arrow links, which are our children who are either in college or matriculating in STEM, but also our program partners and youth that we mentor. So the students can get inspired about STEM, and they can say, oh, if that person can do it, I surely can do that too. So in addition to the video vignettes, we created a new program this year, which we should see the outcome of next year, which is a new normal city Arts 6 Feet Apart, which is a collaboration with the Arts Facet. We have 5 facets within the Links Incorporated. And this program will allow students to use their STEM skills as well as their art skills to build a city model, which shows how we will survive in the new normal that we have with coronavirus, but also show how that we will continue to embrace the arts even in this new environment. So we're going to have them build models. So in addition to writing code, sometimes you might want to build something. And so these are outcomes that we are seeing. We are also in support of HBCUs through our Services to Youth facet. And many of our students, we are providing scholarships to them in STEM areas. So these are the ways and the outcomes that we are affecting our students. Now, with regard to MITRE, I am a systems engineer with MITRE. I have been with MITRE now for 5 years. Prior to that, I was with other companies such as Accenture as well as Lockheed Martin, where I spent over 26 years. Through MITRE, if you are interested in becoming an intern at MITRE, we do have an internship program. You can go to www.mitre.org. And then if you select careers, and then under careers, you'll see something that's labeled student programs. You can explore summer internships there, as well as new job openings for college graduates. We are looking for students in computer engineering, electrical engineering, computer science, systems engineering, which is my area, software engineering. We're looking for students with grades 3.0 or better, those who have some of the coding skills that we mentioned earlier, such as Java, C++, MATLAB, and other coding skills. We also ask that you are familiar with Windows operating systems as well as UIX. So we have a plethora of internship opportunities, and the internship programs, they are very guided so that you can do nothing but succeed when you join those programs. So I hope I've answered the MITRE question as well as the Eastern area question.
You are on top of it. Thank you so much, Stacy. Let's stay with the topic of internships in general for a moment, because that's been, I'm looking at questions coming from the audience, and that's been a pretty hot topic. Roz, if you recall, I know you have since retired, but if you recall, how would somebody look at Intel for potential internship opportunities or hiring opportunities?
Okay, so the first thing I'm going to tell everybody out there is looking for a job is a job. You need to have a plan, and you need to be very intentional. So those looking for high school opportunities, at various times, even Intel and some of our sites did do some level of high school internships, but it was pretty rare. But I would encourage you to go to your local one-stop career centers, to go to even your community college. You're going to find where there are companies that are doing high school internships. When it comes to Intel, there is so much information out there now to research. So the formal way to do it is to go onto intel.com/jobs, look up under internships. I just looked at it this morning. They're currently under.
Uh-oh. Hang on, Roz. We're going to pause for a second because we can't hear you. There you go.
Yeah. So now's the time to do it for this summer. Undergrad, grad, PhDs. There are current internships available in law, marketing, finance, hardware, software. Something's going on here. Again, can you hear me now? I'm sorry.
Yeah. If you go back to the website thing, I think we missed that because I think we're all blinking out a bit.
Go on the website, all of the internships, I looked at it this morning, and there are internships from undergrad to PhD, and they're all over. Think about a technology company. There's internships in finance, marketing, legal, research science, hardware, software, human. To look through there, and then apply, and then go on LinkedIn and look for people who work at Intel. The one thing I will tell you, particularly my experience, particularly for those of us that work in technology, when a student reaches out to us, I don't care where that student is coming from. We will use our network to connect you because there's not enough of us. So do not be shy. Apply, find somebody and tell that person, I just applied for an internship at Intel. I just applied for an internship at MITRE. It is a very small community, very small community. Somebody can get you to somebody who is connected to somebody at that company. I guarantee you. Okay.
Thank you, Rosalind. And so what I heard, to summarize what that piece was, use your network, right? And our keynote speaker, Kiana Cave, said that. She said she used LinkedIn to reach out to people. So use that resource to try to connect. And then Rosalind, you said one thing that's very important, and I want to bring others in the conversation, Dr. Mackey or Donna or Robert, it's a job, right? Finding a job is not like you just show up, oh, I have a job, here we go. It's a job, Dr. Mackey, any insight? I know you've had students coming out of STEM, Nolan, you work with students. Any insight in terms of what you've been able to observe with your students in getting internship or job opportunities?
As a part of our model where we surround our K-12 kids with our college kids, one thing that the college kids are realizing is that what Raj mentioned, is that by volunteering and mentoring these younger kids, they're working on their skills like collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and more importantly, when somebody said cultural, your cultural assets, but communication, how do I work and learn and live with people? And by coming to these events and then having volunteers from companies there, they're getting the opportunity to talk to people and corporations in an informal situation. So literally some of our students have gotten informal job interviews that eventually led to jobs because they showed up to serve their community. So service can be a way for you to find a job when people actually get a chance to see you operate in a situation that is not a school setting. But then it's also, service can allow you to make mistakes and learn other skills that you need in the workplace or working for a job. And we teach them that when they volunteer, and these volunteers show up who are executives and things, how to approach them and how to talk to them. So that whole communication piece becomes a part of their DNA.
Thank you. Donna, Robert, anything to add to that discussion?
I would say get connected with organizations, like youth serving organizations that may be in your respective communities, because there are opportunities that may not be known to the general public, but that come as a result of partnerships that local organizations may have. So I would say if there is a push, or if there are organizations that work in the STEM field, to get connected with those and keep track of the programming that they're offering. Roz mentioned limited opportunities for high school students, but one I wanted to mention, the NSA has a program for high school students. And I think it's a great opportunity to learn more about the NSA and what they do. But they
What is NSA? What is NSA?
I'm sorry, the National Security Administration. They have an ongoing program where they are able to bring in high school students and expose them to the work that they do. So that would be an additional opportunity for younger students. I think it's also important to look at some of our higher learning institutions. There's one, Capital Technology University, which is in Laurel, Maryland, and they work with cybersecurity is just one of the programs that they offer, but there are opportunities there. There's money available for scholarships for students who matriculate at these universities and institutions. And I think it's important for as many of our community members to know what is available and for us to be able to share. I think as we learn about those, sometimes through our organizations, is to make sure that we make people make people aware of what's in your community, because there a lot of times there's money that goes unspent or unused because people may not know that they have access to these programs.
Thank you. Robert, anything to add?
Yeah, I really would encourage everyone to go visit our website, empower.org. Our program, we have a core program. This is for the young adults, 18 to 25-year-olds. Only requirement really, other than economic status requirements, is you have to have a GED or high school diploma. And our program is basically 23 weeks. 16 of those weeks you're in the classroom. Right now that's virtual delivery. Where we're teaching you the basic skills. You don't have to have any computer skills, but we also place you after that, the last 7 weeks, a minimum of a 7-week paid internship. So all of our students who come through our program, we don't just train you and get you a certification. We place you with our employer partners and get you a paid internship, minimum 7 weeks. We're also a Department of Labor, a certified apprenticeship program. And so we place you in those type of apprenticeship roles. But within 1 year of that graduation, our requirement is 80% job placement. So we're not simply giving you the skills. We're gonna expose you during that 16 weeks of classroom training to CIOs and CISOs and training managers and engineers, for all the wonderful partners that we have. They're gonna come in and speak and share what they do and demonstrate. But then you're gonna get that paid internship, or you'll work on a paid project for a company. And the last thing we're doing is we're launching a national community help desk initiative. We just started in Baltimore working with other organizations, where what we're doing is we're actually providing our students after the program, giving them a paid apprenticeship or internship but they're going to be serving their own communities, answering the phones and helping students and parents who need to transition to this online environment because they're now in school, or for other nonprofits who are serving clients in other areas, but they need help with the support. So we're looking at doing this nationally now. So I would encourage you to go there. We also have advanced programs in cybersecurity and cloud where we do the same thing. We place you in those roles, we get you internship opportunities, and it's all free to students. So we rely on fundraising and foundations and grants in wonderful employer partners.
That's phenomenal. So you talked about true internship opportunities, paid internship opportunities upon successful completion of the program. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Mackey, I want to just hit you real quick. I know that you've gone to virtual delivery also, and I don't think you had a chance to talk about that. Talk about what you're doing virtually, because there may be people on this call from all over the country who can engage with STEMNOLA as well.
Okay, great. Thank you, Deb. I also want to mention, like the Department of Defense, the federal government, a lot of their money has been concentrated in STEM around Department of Defense, and they have programs for parents, kids at any grade level that you can access. So I wanted to mention that. Like we said earlier, STEMNOLA is a community-based program that engaged the community from cradle to career, parents and kids, and STEM professionals. So when COVID hit, we were based mainly doing these live big programs, in cities. 6 weeks after COVID hit, we converted to virtual programming. So we have a program now called STEMNOLA at Home on Thursdays from 4 to 5 o'clock, where we just get online and we do a STEM lesson every week. Parents, students, you can download the lesson from the site, collect the materials in your home. We have a professional speak, and then we have a college intern. A college intern lead the lesson. Yesterday was a young lady at Southmoreland Chemical Engineering from Howard University. So we've engaged kids in 34 states and 4 countries, and we're doing that now on a consistent basis. We also have virtual STEM Saturdays now all over the nation. You can go to stemnola.com. We're shipping kits all across the country now in a partnership with UPS to lower the cost, and primarily all of this has been primarily free. But the goal is, we believe that hands-on means minds-on. So you receive a kit like it's Christmas, and in that kit is everything that you need to engage in a topic of the day, whether it's biology, whether it's chemistry, whether it's mathematics or magnets. Everything you need is in that kit.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Let me frame one more question. I think we have time for a couple more things here. Again, lots of stuff coming from the audience. And this is for anybody. We'll make it dealer's choice, if you will. How can educators and counselors build a stronger professional network within the tech folks so that they can provide better resources to students? So I guess the question is, if you're a counselor or a guidance counselor or placement director, what can I do? If that were me, what can I do to build stronger connections, stronger relationships, so that I'm giving better advice? And in addition to doing things like participating in this session, but what are some of the things that I could do? Because I'm committed, I'm dedicated, I'm not in the space, I'm an advisor. I want to ensure that my students are getting the best advice. What is it that I can do? Anyone?
This is Stacy. I'll take that. What I've noticed as we put together the STEM Toolkit, which is a large online resource, is that there are many programs there where teachers can actually do a search on a given topic. And so we found lots of programming where they will teach pretty much in the video, a teacher can learn, well, if I wanted to give a lesson in this is what I need to know to give that lesson. And so if a teacher is not, say, skilled in STEM themselves, or they need some guidance, there are plenty of videos out there online that teachers can use. If they want to establish a network in their community, they might want to reach out to those organizations that have already partnered with them. And I guarantee you, within those organizations, they'll find networks. And some of the parents that have been coming there, they know STEM professionals. And so sometimes it's just a matter of saying, I have a need, reaching out to your county's STEM council. Every county nowadays has a STEM council. So if you reach out to those networks, and there's a state council, even in Maryland, we have a business roundtable that you can use to bring in speakers for certain topics. So that, not teachers, but mentors on certain topics. So that's how teachers and educational professionals can get the advice and help they need to grow their program, or the advice they give students?
Great. If you put a pin, if anybody else wants to add to that answer, but let me just put a pin in. This just came in. The Emma Bowen Foundation is currently taking applications for opportunities in the media industry, opportunities in tech, content, or business. More information, go to the Emma Bowen website, www.emmabowen, EMMABOWEN foundation.org. Okay. Any more comments on what guidance counselors or advisors can do? Any thoughts there?
Just really quickly, I wanted to add to what Stacy, the great advice Stacy gave. Many companies, many tech companies have employee resource groups or affinity groups, and they are a great resource to be able to tap into for the employees to be able to work more in the community. So a lot of their work is sometimes focused with other organizations or community-based organizations, but they're always looking for opportunities to engage with the community. And especially if it's a school, there may be greater accessibility for those schools to tap into that. So I would say just looking at employee resource groups as an additional strategy.
Great.
Yeah, just really quick, I would just add also, I've had counselors around the country reach out to me. You don't have to reinvent the wheel. Reach out to thought leaders in your area or use your LinkedIn and ask them, invite them into your classroom or a special sessions that you have where we can share what we do, again, demonstrate, answer questions. The last thing I would say too is I struggled with getting into this IT field because I had a guidance counselor basically based on grades, and in fact, math wasn't my strongest subject, basically told me to not even think about STEM as a career. And so I had to overcome that after high school and realize that I could do it. So I would just recommend that you don't prejudge someone being a STEM person based on simply what they at now or their grades. There's a lot of opportunities in this space. And so it's okay to say you might want to work on your math skills, et cetera, because it opened up more doors and pathways to you. But it's not true if that's not simply your favorite subject or you're not good at it. You shouldn't think about STEM.
That's very powerful. Dr. Mackey?
Just quickly, I've worked with the College Board for years, speaking at the National Council Association around this topic. And one of my advice to the counselors and the teachers were, if you're not at the table, you're at the menu. Technology and things are moving so quickly that they can't sit back and wait for somebody to bring it to the school or bring it to the classroom. They have to get into the community. They have to volunteer with Black Girls Code. They have to get engaged in things that otherwise will increase their professional development, or their knowledge and awareness around this material, around this area too. And it's the same thing with us in general. People have to get more civically engaged so they can understand how all this stuff tied together, so they can have better grasp of just a conversation about the fourth industrial revolution. We know about it, but for the general population, they're just not having those conversations.
Great. Thank you. Thank you. We have about 5 minutes left. And so I am going to ask each of you for any quick closing comments. And so you probably have a little bit less than 60 seconds each, so I can close out on time. So whoever would like to go first, just any closing comments for this group. And I'm just so excited about this. The questions and stuff are pouring in, but our time is far spent. Any closing thoughts you'd like to leave with this group?
I'll kick it off simply by saying, again, I'm a living witness that, you can really excel in the STEM areas, and you can do it. There's resources, not just our organizations, but others out there where you don't have to spend a lot of money doing it. One of the reasons why a lot of our students have a lot of student debt is because people knew that we wanted college degrees, and they got the money, but didn't give us the skills or the competencies that we needed. We have an opportunity to work as an ecosystem to provide this to our young people. And young people, don't be afraid. See yourself in this, you belong in this. And I just think that IT can take you a long way. And to Ra's point, I think a lot of this is going to be about entrepreneurship and using your skills and your talent to change the world with the technology.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, Robert. Anyone else? Any closing thoughts? Raz? Uh-oh.
So I will build off of that. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Go to the
yes.
next person. Okay. This is what I think everybody should understand. Whether you work in technology or not, technology is going to drive the economy and it's going to drive all opportunity. So it's like you can decide that you're going to be the Uber driver or you're going to own the company that uses Uber to drive. So I think we have to step back and really recognize even the conversation around guidance counselors, technology is where the money will be, whether that's in movies, sports. I mean, you look at what's happening. And so this is our opportunity to not get left behind. Every single innovation.
Mm-mm. Just going to give it a second. Okay, I'm not sure what is going on. I'm going to go on Stacy or Donna. There we go. Roz, go ahead. Close out.
Yes, don't get left behind. Get technology skills and people skills and go do what you want to do for the benefit of your life.
Thank you, Roz. Donna, Stacy.
I think it's important for our children, our students to understand that we want them to be not just the consumers of technology, but the innovators. And that's where all of our work lies. And we are here to support, and we want parents and families and guidance counselors and students themselves to understand that being the innovators is critical to our success and how we show up, and making sure that technology is not just thrown at us, but we are a part of the creation of it. And it's so important as we determine what our next life is going to be.
Great, thank you. Donna, and then Dr. Mackey will close us out. Donna?
I just went, Stacy.
Oh, I'm sorry, Stacy,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. I would like to say that, can you hear me?
Yes, yes.
Okay. I would like to say to the parents and advisors that no matter where you are in your drive to encourage students and to mentor students and to guide them into the STEM pipeline, there is a place for you, no matter how mature you are in STEM and how steep your background is in STEM. So don't shy away from it. Use resources. They are readily available. You can Google about anything, but our STEM toolkit is available for you, and you can just figure out, and as we say, get in where you fit in. And so second to that is for the students. If you can believe that you can become it, decide what your passion is in that area and go for it. Just ask one question, ask one person, and I guarantee you everybody is linked or networked to somebody else who can help you get the information and the guidance and the counseling you need. We are here to help you, all of us here on this panel today, but especially the Eastern area of the Links Incorporated. So don't hesitate to give us a call if you have questions.
Thank you, Stacy. And Dr. Mackey, I'll ask you to close us out.
In the 21st century, our children are gonna have, all of us, and our children have one of three options. Either they're gonna take something, break something into, or make something. If they don't get the education and skills and inspiration to make something like make a living, make a life, make a difference, they're only gonna leave them with the two options that we see on the news every night, and we don't want that for any of our children. In the 21st century, you gotta have skills to pay the bills. The man or woman who doesn't have skills asks people how much they pay. The man or woman who does have skills can tell people how much they charge. We need you all to go out and get the skills so you can tell not the people next door, not the people across, people around the world, because the internet gonna allow you to tell the people around the world what you charge. Thank you.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bravo, panelists. Thank you so much for taking your time to participate. FCC leadership, thank you. The information, all of our panelists, each of our panelists has provided some additional information. You heard Stacy continue to reference a guide. The links it put together. Dr. Mackey sent information. It's on the, it will be, if it's not already, on the FCC advisory website. Someone will show that a little bit later in the program. We are now going to take a 10-minute break, and we will reconvene with panel number 2 at 1:45. Thank you again, and I'm out. Thank you. Take care.
We're ready.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Marita Coley, President and CEO of the Multicultural Media, Telecom, and Internet Council, and I'm also a member of the Federal Communications Commission's Workforce Diversity Subgroup. We are so excited to bring you panel 2 of our exciting Roadmap to Tech Jobs Summit today. We have some real all-stars. If you missed the first panel, I strongly suggest that you go back when it's posted on the FCC's website and look at the first panel. But for now, we're going to go to panel number 2, which we've styled Building Your Personal Brand. We are so excited and thrilled to bring you some of the top professionals in the media, telecom, and tech sector. And because they do have such amazing backgrounds, what I'm going to do for this panel is just to introduce them and then let them talk to you and tell you from their own mouths about their careers and what they do. And then we're going to go back and pick up some questions and then allow some questions from the audience to come in. So I'd like to introduce my panelists here today. We have 4. Celeste Carrasco is Director of Public Affairs at AT&T, where she manages community partnerships and is just one of my all-around favorite people in this industry. We have Donald Cravens, Vice President of Policy and External Affairs for Charter Communications. He's a leader and formerly at the National Urban League, and he's also a major in the DC National Guard. So giving an introduction to you, Don. John Gibson, who's Vice President of External and Multicultural Affairs at the Motion Picture Association, who's also very involved with community outreach and diversity in that industry. And then last but not least, we have Eric Gonzalez, who's a Cloud Security Program Manager at Ridgeline, which is an investment management software company based in Lake Tahoe. And Eric, I'd also acknowledge, is also a Navy in the Navy Marine Corps. So now what I'd like to do is to go back to each of you, and why don't we start with you, Eric? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your career, and anything that you would want a young person who's trying to get into the tech industry to know about you. Eric?
Thank you, Marita. Thank you for having me and for that introduction. Pleasure to be here with the panelists and welcome everyone. So as Marita said, I just spent the last decade of my life serving in the Navy as a cryptologist. And then I just made the transition about 5 months ago to the private industry, working for a cloud security startup specifically focused on building financial technology. So for me, what I'd love to kind of relate to the crowd is a hard pivot, right? I went from serving on ships and flying in airplanes to now working in cloud security and working with one of 2 veterans and one of 10 minorities in a technology company based out of that Bay Area. So I'd say there's a lot to demystify, and there's a lot of value in your experience that you can bring from your culture that I was able to harness, that I would love for everyone to kind of take a look at yourself, just as I did, and I'll expand on as we make our way through this discussion. But thank you for having me.
Thank you, Eric, for joining us. And now we have Don Cravens from Charter Communications. Would you tell us a little bit about yourself, Don?
Thank you so much, Marita. First of all, just let me say good afternoon to all of you. It's such an honor and a pleasure to be here with you. I want to thank the advisory committee, especially the working group, the diversity and tech sector working group. Thank you so much for the introduction, the invitation to be here. I want to talk about my panelists, Marita, if I could. First of all, Marita is one of my sheroes and has been someone that I have looked up to in this industry. And I think Eric talked a little bit about it. The best advice I can give any young person who wants to get involved in any industry is mentorship and having the right mentorship. I hear a lot of millennials and Gen Zers talk about mentors, but you got to know who to really mentor it with. And Marita has been one of those people. And so Marita, thank you so much for moderating this panel. Celeste and my brother Gibson, just 2 wonderful people. And when I was at the Urban League and I was in a nonprofit space, both John and Celeste supported the work that we were doing. And I want to give them their shots, their shout outs, because they deserve it, that they're not only people who are in the industry, but they're true to the people as well. And they have always been that. And so now that I am in the industry, and I will talk about what I do in a second, I model a lot of the work that I do on the work that John Gibson and Celeste do at AT&T, because the way they do their work, they support their companies, they support the industry, but they're always reaching down to make sure that other Black and brown and people of color are being mentored, and they build the pipeline. They're actual pipe fitters. They build a pipeline. I'm Don Cravens. As Marita said, I work at Charter Communications. Many of you may know Charter through our brand Spectrum. We are a major cable and broadband provider. We're in over 40 states and serve 30 million customers, 41 states. And so I'm very happy to be here. What I'll say just to start, we'll talk about it a little bit later, as my Navy buddy, and again, thank you for your service, Eric said, I don't want any one of the young folks to believe that everything in life has to be preordained or pre-planned. Many of us who ended up in this industry never thought in a million years we would be in this industry. And so I know when young people are sitting down and they're trying to make a plan, and we tell you to do that. I've got 2 college students of my own, and you say, make a plan. I do want you to make a plan, but I want you to always be able to modify, to move it. And we'll talk a little bit about that later on in the panel, but just make a plan, but be willing to be flexible with your plans. And you'll find, I think you'll be happier and probably even more successful. So again, thanks for letting me be on the panel, Marita.
Thank you, Don. And I love that, being flexible, because I think you're right. A lot of times people look at you and, everyone's so successful, and, young people might think, oh, they knew exactly where they were going to go, when in reality, a lot of times it's a circuitous route, and you get there because of opportunities that come along the way that impact your choices. And that goes for college majors as well. I know I changed mine a couple times. So now, is Celeste, all these years I've known you, Celeste, is that the correct pronunciation?
Yeah, I get asked that all the time. Celeste is usually when you're speaking Spanish to me, you will call me Celeste.
Okay.
If you're speaking English, you will say Celeste. And but you can call me anytime, anything you like.
I love that. Okay, well, tell us a little bit. You're with AT&T, you're a star over there, and managing community relationships. So tell us about your career and what brought you here and to the media, telecom, and tech. And AT&T is, people don't realize, with AT&T, a lot of times, you think about it as AT&T, but it's actually, isn't it the biggest entertainment company now?
Yes, with the acquisition of Warner Media, now we have grown the family significantly. So in addition to the cell phones, the network, now we have CNN, Warner Brothers Studios. So it's definitely a wonderful addition to our family. We're very thrilled to be that part of the entertainment family as well, which is also part of the STEM conversation, right? Media is also part of this conversation, very, very important. And I think that's where the future is going as far as communication. So, my journey, and I think Don, he outlined the whole, you have to be flexible. I have been with AT&T for 24 years. So I started straight out of college. It's one of those things that I didn't expect that I was still going to be at AT&T 24 years later, especially since I joined in the internet boom, where everybody was jumping from one company to another at that time. I have no idea what made me stay put. Instead of just jumping around from one startup to another, like most of my colleagues at the time did. Being a woman in technology was, I was the only person in the room that not only I was a woman, I was a Latina, it just was not a place that that screamed out, "Hey, welcome to the club." The internet startup environment was not one that that I intended to go into. It was just like you said, it was just fate that put me there. And but sometimes being the first person of color in the room also puts a lot of pressure on you as a person that you have to break a lot of stereotypes, and you have to be ready for that. You have to be ready to be the only, if you look around, to be, whether you're the only woman, whether you're the only person of color, whether you're the only person with a disability, all of those things can be challenging, but at the same time, it can be wonderful because you get to be the first one that exposes all of the other people to the amazing talents that we bring to the table. So, yes, it was a difficult journey at times, but it was a very rewarding one. And we'll get into a lot of the things that, have transpired over the last 24 years, but it's just great to be here. Thank you for the invitation.
Well, thank you for joining us. And now John Gibson, our Hollywood panelist here from the Motion Picture Association. Please share with us some things about your background, how you got where you are now, and then we'll go into the questions a little later. Just tell us about you.
Rita, thank you for moderating us. Not only are you a dear friend, but you are one of the MPA's closest multicultural partners, and I value you tremendously. Mr. Cravens touched on something that's very important about mentorship. I think it's important, obviously, at the start of your career, but I think whether you're in the middle or even when you are at a senior level, mentors are still extremely valuable. And I consider Mr. Cravens to be a mentor because there are sometimes, particularly, I think if you work in the community engagement, the diversity, equity, and inclusion space, it can be a lonely space at times because you are really working for change. And a lot of organizations have good intentions, but change is difficult. And so sometimes you find yourself on that island by yourself, but that's why you need to have mentors, those folks that you can call, that can feed into you, give you a different perspective. So I think mentorship is so incredibly important throughout your entire journey. Now, for me, I grew up in Washington, D.C. I'm a native, and I didn't always see the very best of my community reflected, particularly when there were film or TV shows about Washington, D.C. You didn't see my D.C., and you didn't see the complexity, the diversity, the vibrancy of the Black American experience. So now working at the MPA, this is something I think about every single day, about the power of imagery and people seeing themselves and seeing the very best of themselves. It lights a fire. So that is my passion every single day, to bring change behind the scenes, to be effective, and giving voice to marginalized communities. Because as we've seen with recent events, we really need to see more stories told from a diversity of voices and viewpoints. So that's what drives me. That's my passion.
Okay, thank you so much. And one of the things today is that tech career doesn't necessarily mean tech. Everything is tech. And a lot of the panelists today started out in another area and then morphed into tech. I'm a person, I started my career in journalism at Detroit News, and then I ended up going to law school, and then I ended up being an executive at Black Entertainment Television. So one of the things that we want to do is to demystify the whole idea of getting into a tech career. So Eric, you're actually an engineer, but can you give us a little bit of background about what happened with your trajectory from getting into tech and starting out as an engineer? And what part of the process did you latch onto in order to get you into the tech side of the business?
Thanks, Marita. Yeah, so it's very interesting because the experience that I've leveraged has been self-taught. It actually hasn't come from institutions. It hasn't come from my education, even though that's been exceptionally valuable. It's been through my interests and kind of diving deep on those interests by just the myriad of like solutions that exist on the internet. You know, things like how college kids, study for school, right? You think of YouTube, you think of Google searches. That could land you in a very meaningful place if you kind of chase those interests and develop your own personal portfolio. That's kind of what I did to discover what I was interested in doing as I decided to make that transition. But as Donald and John began to mention, I also found people in a community to talk to tell me what the art of the possible was, and to highlight the skills that I had that I didn't recognize that would be valuable, that I can craft my story around as I began to make this transition and began to interview and talk to people. A big kind of realization that I had was I really needed to, my resume was going to be kind of one aspect of things. I looked at that as a sheet of paper that I'm going to give a stranger that hopefully they'll call me back. And then I can have a meaningful connection. But if I were to get that phone call, I needed to be able to tell them a story about myself and about the work that I wanted to do, and how my experience would allow me to either contribute from day one, or two, or B, excuse me, learn quickly because of the experiences that I have had. And these experiences don't have to be like coding. Like, just because I do work with engineers, a a lot of the conversations that I had nothing to do with Python or SQL or JavaScript or any of those languages. It was about, how did you manage a project? How did you define requirements? How did you get people in the same room to march and achieve the objective that everyone wanted to complete? And that happened in more than one way. I drew on my life experience. I drew on experiences with my family, my experiences as a Puerto Rican growing up in a harsh, in a harsh environment at times. I was able to bring all of those stories to every interview. So for me, that was a big piece of the journey. I brought all of my life into that room when I was going to interview, and I recognized that needed to be in that room because of the mentors I had that pointed out opportunities to me.
Great, thank you, Eric. And Don, you didn't begin your career in tech either. You began in government and law. So can you tell us about that transition and how your experience in government and law actually prepared you very well for a tech career?
Sure. Thank you, Marita. When I was growing up in Louisiana, a very rural part of the state, my dream was to be in politics. And so early on, I attended LSU, majored in political science, attended law school at Southern University Law Center, and ran for office at an early age, became a state representative. I think I was 34 at the time, 32 or 34, and eventually became a state senator. I thought I was going to be that Louisiana politician who was going to stay there forever and open up a small law firm, hang my shingle, and live happily ever after. And life doesn't always work that way. I ended up running for Congress in 2008, lost, and then received a phone call from a U.S. senator asking if I'd be willing and interested to move to Washington, D.C. to take a job on Capitol Hill. And so, like the Beverly Hillbillies, which your audience won't know who that is, we loaded up the truck and we moved to Washington, D.C. And the rest is history. My wife and I and my family, we've been in the Washington area since. I've worked on Capitol Hill. I worked for the National Urban League, as Marita mentioned, and now I'm at Charter Communications. What I'll say is one theme I tried to do throughout all my life is whatever I was doing, I tried to do it well, and I tried to build relationships. I tried to keep my reputation clean. I tried to be honest. I tried to be good to people. I realized that seeing people going up the ladder, sometimes you see those same people coming down the ladder. And if you treat everybody with respect and with dignity, you really can go to sleep at night feeling good about yourself. And what the good Lord has given me in my life, and I do believe that he has a lot to do with it too, is I've had some wonderful opportunities. And Charter is one of those wonderful opportunities. The tech and telecom industry needs a lot of different people. They need people who know about government affairs because they have interest on Capitol Hill, or people in regulatory affairs because they have interest at the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission. They need accountants. They need people who can handle the finances. They need people who can manage call centers. They need engineers. They need so many different types of people. And so what I'll say to you, as Celeste said, you can absolutely do it from college and do it throughout. And that's a great path. But if you don't do it that way, I don't want anyone to feel like you missed your opportunity. Be good at what you do, work hard, and look for opportunities to get involved. And I think if you do that, you'll find that there's some place, somewhere for you in this industry, and you can be successful. You can feed your family very, very well, and you can make a difference in our economy and in our technology.
Thank you so much, Don. And just as you say, the whole thing about having a career in tech and in anything does have to do with what this panel is about, which is building your personal brand. And as you say, some of the people that you see on the way up might be the same people that you see on the way down. So it's very important to make sure that you manage your reputation and that you have are known for being a person of your word, or getting projects in on time and doing it at the highest level that you're able to do. So, so thank you. This is all contributing to our topic today of building your personal brand. And speaking of that, Celeste, your personal brand, and we're saying that you can take that to the bank, literally. Tell us about social media, and that's one of your specialties. How does social media play a role in your career, and what are some of the do's and don'ts about social media in terms of your career and your personal brand?
Yes, it's crucial. I think social media now more than ever plays a tremendous role. When I would say about 8 years ago, when we first started talking about the importance of your personal brand and social media, people used to kind of roll their eyes into the back of their head and saying like, no, it doesn't matter. That's my personal things, and this is business. And I kept reiterating it's definitely an entangled situation. There's no defined line or firewall that is able to distinguish what you do in your personal life from what from how work's seeing that, right? It's like people believe or have this hope that they're not going to entangle, but they do. So, and if you don't have to take my word for it, just pick up a newspaper and see people that are publishing things online, and they feel very, very comfortable about saying things. Not necessarily very nice things, whether it's Twitter or whether it's LinkedIn or Facebook, and they think they're saying it in a bubble, as if nobody, as if it's falling on friendly ears or sympathetic ears, and soon to find out that either their employer found out about it, or the police found out about it. And, the next knock on their door, and there's a lot of surprise as to, hey, what did I do wrong? The world doesn't stop at the keyboard, right? This is the online persona that you're putting forward has a lot to do with your everyday activities. It has to do with your job. It has to do with your, whether you're part of the, if you're in the PTA or if you're in a sports team, you may get kicked off if all of a sudden you're saying hate speech about, a colleague or a friend or somebody that you saw, at the supermarket. It's just, there's got to be an understanding that you can't just be a different persona online than who you are and who you want to be. There's no anonymity in social media. And once we accept that there's no anonymity, and, then you would think about what you would say in front of your own family members. Would you say these things in front of your grandmother, right? Would you say these things in front of your teachers? Would you say them? And if you're not going to say them, then don't say them online, because those things can and most likely will come back at some point. And remember that just because it happened 10 years ago, just because it happened 20 years ago, we don't get a clean slate. Once it's out there, it's been said, it's been posted, it's been, whatever it was, the engagement, a video, it's available for somebody to take a screenshot of it. So incredibly important to keep who you are authentic, not only, who you are every day, but also who you are online. So keeping the same level of authenticity and quality is important because, and I can tell you right now, if anybody wants to go and scrub my social media, they'll be happy to find out that they will see, the same Celeste that you would meet in person pretty much gets reflected on, on all my social media channels. And that's because it's, the whole level of authenticity has a lot to do with it as well. So being authentic, being your authentic self, is incredibly important, especially as you go into, I'm coming from corporate America, but as you go into corporate America or any path that you choose to pursue, understanding who you are as a person and being authentic to who you are, it plays a huge role in your success. Because, having a dual personality, being a certain person, in the workplace and being a different person at home eventually will create levels of anxiety. So be authentic, keep your social media clean, and you should have a successful online persona.
And that goes obviously not just for things that you post on social media, but on things that other people might post on social media about you. So thanks very much. So John, the Motion Picture Association, can you, for this audience, you have such an incredible job. And I enjoy being your partner. MMTC enjoys being your partner. Can you tell us about the Motion Picture Association, who your members are, and what is the connection to tech and the Motion Picture Association?
Absolutely. Let me just first say what Celeste said about social media was spot on. I could not have said it any better. And you really do, to the students watching, you really do have to be careful because you hear so many stories of folks doing stuff in their youth and they now have a higher profile. And again, folks go researching and it's always, well, that's not who I am. That's not who I was. Folks are not buying that these days because common sense still says that you just shouldn't say certain things. And, MPA, we just developed a social media policy for employees. So if you wouldn't say it at work, don't say it online. So Celeste, thank you for that. What the MPA does, so the Motion Picture Association, obviously it is a trade association, but it is the voice and global arm of the film, TV, and streaming industry. Our 6 members, I like to brag, they have no equals. They are, and you've heard of them, they are the most recognizable content creators in the world. You have Walt Disney, you have Netflix, Paramount Pictures, Sony Pictures Entertainment, Universal Studios, and Warner Brothers, which is part of AT&T. And so what I do, as we've seen over the last year, and as we've seen continuously, our studios put out some incredible content. And while we were all stuck in home because of COVID, thank goodness for the streaming platforms that many of them have, so you could see the very best. And what we saw in 2020 was a real collection of diverse projects, the diversity that we have been fighting for so many years, the diversity that the civil rights groups, the Urban League, as a partner said to the MPA, you need to fix this, that they would have meetings with our individual studios. The diversity that members of Congress have been saying, look, communities need to see themselves. 2020 showed that, and I will say the best is yet to come. So I work on that every single day. Back in 2012, the leadership of the MPA allowed me to create the first ever diversity, equity, and inclusion program. It's gone through some name changes over the years, but we didn't have anything. The American Black Film Festival, which I'm a board member, was our first partner. And just today, as of today, I was just going through the list, we have 44 multicultural partners. I'm proud to say, I don't think there's a trade association that can match that, or even many corporations. But these partners, they are like extended members of my family. They are, if you will, nurturing the next generation of Black, Latinx, Asian American, Pacific Islander, Native American, the LGBTQIA space, they are nurturing the next level of content creators that you will be hearing about, you will be seeing their work. And so to be able to support their work, link arm in arm with them, to connect them with some of our studios if they didn't already have an existing relationship. Sometimes to connect them with each other, to do events where members of Congress and their staff can see who are the true people really running the show. I think in the next 5 years, if you look at a class photo of who's running Hollywood, it's going to be a lot black and brown. And you're going to see a lot more of that because those folks are at the VP and SVP level. So don't let anybody tell you that there's no diversity in Hollywood. There is. We've done a tremendous amount of work to get us to a great place. However, we are not even close to where we need to be. But if you're in a marathon, you still, even though you can't see the finish line, you are still running as fast as possible to get to the finish line. So that is something that I'm committed to doing every single day. So that's what the MPA is. Unmute, Marita.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you, John. And Eric, you're I'll call you our resident engineer. It's interesting because, the theme of this whole conference basically is to help to broaden young people's perspectives about tech and recognize that you don't have to be an engineer, or a scientist to be in tech. But since we have you, I'd like to ask you about just your role in terms of being an engineer, being in this field. And in the tech sector, what kinds of things can you share with young people who are interested in being engineers and how they fit in?
Yeah, absolutely, Marita. I would say first and foremost is portfolio, right? When you think of any job you would ever want to apply for, you want to be able to show either A, you've done the work in times past, or you are really interested in doing that work, so much so that you've kind of have built a portfolio around your proof in that interest or your proof in driving results in that industry. So for me, that's what I did as I started out. Making the transition from the military to a private industry that knows nothing about the service, nothing about my contributions, can't draw a parallel between cloud security and me flying on a plane collecting intelligence. They're going this way. They're missing each other. So for me, it was a lot like I was a fresh graduate applying out of college. I had to work and translate exactly what my experience was and what my interest was in the gaps that I had in places where I wasn't, kind of efficient and wasn't completely schooled up on. I really had to show that this is a space where I'm really interested in learning. I understand that you have a training program, as most tech companies do. I'll tell you, I interviewed with just about every large tech company that you can think of, and what you will hear for the most part is they're looking for culture fit. If you make it into the room where you're being interviewed, that means from a technical competency level, you've already passed. Now they want to see if you're good for Google, if you're good for Facebook, if you're good for Amazon. And that means bringing like all of yourself to work. And it sounds super cliche, but the tech industry is probably the industry where that is most like true to form, and that they really want to see what other experiences that you can draw on that they can leverage in that room. And I really want to emphasize that your culture and your family and your experience beyond what you do in the classroom, it means just as much as what your resume, what it says on your resume. It really does. So hone in on being able to tell a story defined by how you can lead through, undefined undefined requirements, or drive a project that may not have the solution that has been determined yet. Be able to talk about those experiences from both your professional, your personal life, and just the interests that you've crafted in that portfolio. So don't be shy about bringing all of you into that interview room when it's your turn, because you deserve to, and you want to bring your culture with you, because one day, if you make it across the finish line, you want to turn around and be on the other side of that table interviewing somebody who may be Black or Latinx or any other minority, and raise us all together.
So that I want to that word culture, because that can be a barrier or it can be open doors. Did you have and I want to go back to you, Eric. Did you have any experiences coming into the tech space, being a person of color? Did you have experiences with unconscious bias in the tech industry because we hear a lot about that. So did you have some experiences like that?
Yes, absolutely, Marita. I'll tell you twofold. So upon the in the interview stage, it was really interesting, and I tried to prepare for what I thought what I was going to encounter, but I also learned something during that interview process. And I remember I was doing a technical interview, writing code, talking about code, and in the middle of the interview, it dawns on the interviewer. That I was a Latinx, and asked, "Oh, wow, so you speak Spanish? We're going to really be able to leverage that." And on this board, I'm showing them a screen of Python, of a computer coding language, and I'm asking, "Well, okay, I'm not sure what that has to do with this technical interview." Yes, I'm a proud Latino. I'd love to, my family has raised me, in that culture that I love. Happy to talk to you about that, but I would love to show you what I can do in solving this problem that you asked me to. So I took it, and we came back to it. I recognized it wasn't being said to me as if it were like an actual attack on my culture and my people. Like, this person genuinely thought that it was an advantage, but didn't recognize the tone or how they introduced that into the conversation. Maybe somewhat offensive or somewhat uncomfortable, right? But for me, I took it as a responsibility and an opportunity to educate. And we came back to that question after the technical interview. I told them all about being a Puerto Rican from the Bronx and what that experience was like, and how much I loved it, and how much I love Latin music. And we connected on like a human to human level. But first, I wanted them to understand that I was in the room to be a technical expert like you're asking me to be. And on the other side of that, now that I'm in the community and I'm working at this company, I look to my left and my right. And as I mentioned during my intro, unfortunately, there are less than 10 people at my company who are Black, Brown, um, or Black, Brown, other, and or had that similar experience like me. And it's a bit uncomfortable. I'm not going to lie, but it's also, they've received my culture well, and I've been able to bring all of myself to work to continue to educate and look for Latinx and Black community members that are interested in the fintech space, and bring them on board and give them opportunities to educate. So when you carry that torch, keep that fire lit. And as Celeste actually said this a bit earlier, you a lot of pressures on you when you're in that room, right? Because now you're representing all of your culture, whether you recognize it or not. They're looking at you not just for your technical competency. They can't help but see who you are, the color of your skin, and everything that comes with that. So be proud. Walk into that room loud, and that's a journey that I'm continuing to walk.
Marita, it's Don. I hope that the participants who just heard Eric's response record that and play it over and over and over. I don't know that I have ever heard anyone explain how to deal with bias, how to overcome it, and how to then turn it around and use our uniqueness as a way to educate our white brothers and sisters. And I will tell you, it's almost as if you wrote it and read it. I have not heard anyone say it that clearly. I'm going to have my kids listen to what you just said, because that is exactly the best advice. I don't want to mess it up. You did it perfectly. You stated it perfectly.
And it also goes back to what Celeste was saying too, about being authentic and just being who you are. And so that's what Eric demonstrated. He's in an uncomfortable situation, and then he, brought his authentic self to solve that issue. And Don, let's go back to you and talking. You're at Charter, which is a wonderful media communications tech company. You're on the corporate side. You came from the Urban League, so you have a diverse background of experience in this area. What kinds of things that you think the tech industry can do to improve recruiting of diverse candidates and to build a diverse pipeline? And I'd also like full disclosure that I serve on Charter's External Diversity and Inclusion Council. So I'd like to commend you and Charter for what you're doing. It's clear that this is something that's intentional, and that Charter is really interested in ensuring that there's diversity in the pipeline, in the C-suite, and whatever. So why don't you tell me a little bit about what you think the industry can do to improve the pipeline of diverse candidates?
Sure, Marita. Well, I'll talk about two things, and I'll start with what you just ended with, which is our External Diversity and Inclusion Council. When Charter merged with Time Warner Cable, part of that merger we agreed was to enter into a memorandum of understanding with several historical civil rights and social justice organizations, MMTC being one, the National Urban League, National Action Network, and others. And the idea behind that memorandum of understanding was that we wanted to be a very special type of company, a very new company. And that even though we thought we were doing great things when it comes to diversity and our products and services, the best way to check yourself is to have a group of external partners to come in and give you the truth sometimes. Close doors, tell us how we're doing. Don't make it pretty. And one thing about Marita Coley, she'll tell you the truth. I mean, she'll say it in a very nice, respectful, sweet, she's a wonderful woman, but she will tell you the truth. She's a brilliant lawyer. And so Charter has engaged with our External Diversity and Inclusion Council for several years now. And what that has done is it's done a couple of things. It's made us a better company internally, but it's an external council, and it's also helped us figure out better strategies to be a better company externally as well. Not only with goods and services, but with recruitment, with how do we message, how do we recruit, how do we speak to young people, how do we go to HBCUs, how do we approach, what do our call centers look like? All of those entity, those factors for a large company, this council helps us, and we value their opinion. Mark Boreal, Reverend Sharpton, the Cindy Benavides, they will tell you the truth, and they will give it to you. And we've been very, very proud of that partnership. And so that's one thing. I think every company, corporate America, needs to have that type of sounding board, that type of partnership with real people. The second thing that I'm proud of the work we've done is we have internal programs as well. And one of the programs that the Charter boasts about, our Community Impact Program, is the Spectrum Digital Education Grant Program. This is a program that over the last 4 years, we've given out either in cash or in kind, $6 million to nonprofits all across America. And the nonprofits use that money and the resources to provide computer assistance to our young people, to senior citizens, to community groups, to meet the educational needs of the children. We realize that one way we can better connect with the communities that we serve is to give resources to the groups who do this best. I think I will say this as a third point. The best thing corporate America can realize is we don't know what we don't know. And so if you can work with partners who do know, MMTC and others who do know the needs of the community, who do know what the issues are when it comes to recruiting and making sure that we have a truly diverse industry. If you can work with those partners, you'll be much more effective in the work that you're doing. And I think Charter, we're very proud. That's what I do at Charter. So the young people who are wondering, well, what does he do? Does he hook up cable? Does he bring broadband to the home? No, my job, God has blessed me. My job is to work with people like Marita Coley and nonprofits and community social organizations and civil rights organizations, and to go to them and say, look, how can Charter be more supportive? How can you be more supportive to Charter? Be critical, be honest, tell us what can we do better to make sure our company is doing right by the communities we serve. It's a powerful, awesome responsibility, but it's one that I love waking up each and every day to fulfill. And so that's my spiel on what I think corporate America has to do. We have to be in the communities and know the true community.
And you do that very well. And I'm going to give Celeste a chance too to talk about what does AT&T do in terms of your programs to attract diverse applicants to AT&T.
So this one is a little bit tough, right? Because I think our policies are what's important, that, you know, we go out there and we understand the process of getting two diverse candidates. That's one part of the pipeline. The other part of the pipeline is, are those candidates interested in coming to the STEM job, right? So AT&T decided to just basically put money into ensuring that diverse communities are interested in tech early on. So the AT&T Foundation, you know, invests in organizations, and I think Don said it best, you know, like these organizations know how to reach the community. They know how to speak to the community. They're culturally relevant. Organizations like Black Girls Code, Girls Who Code, Tech Bridge Girls, Year Up, Her Scholars, Jobs for America Graduates, Youth Build USA. I mean, these are all organizations that are top-notch, that know how to reach our communities. So we put money there to empower them, to encourage our youth to become interested in jobs in STEM. Then, when they're old enough, it's our job to go find them, right? So making sure that we're looking for the right candidates for, you know, whether it's an HBCU, whether it's a historically Latino college, or, you know, just reaching out to places where we can get the diverse pool of candidates that we want. And that was something that I'm going to take a point of pride that about 12 years ago, AT&T, I was part of a leadership conversation, and that was a project that was given to me and 3 other AT&T employees, and they said, how do we get more diverse candidates? And I mean, we've interviewed everyone that we could get a hold of, and we realized that, you know, we as a company, we weren't we were looking in the wrong places and expecting the diverse candidates to be there where we were looking, versus going to look for the diverse candidates where we knew the diverse candidates were at. Now that is that's just a technical fallacy of your process, right? You're looking in the wrong place. That's like going to fish in a desert, right? It's like you're going to the wrong place. So after having that, you know, conversation with HR, we showed them our findings, and AT&T completely revamped the way that they did recruitment. And so, you know, I can say that I had a hand in ensuring that diverse pipelines were actually correctly implemented within the company, because we weren't looking in the right places. You know, I gave them my own personal example of, you know, my undergrad is from Rutgers University. I'm from New Jersey. You know, AT&T didn't come recruiting there, and there's tons of Latinos at Rutgers University. It just wasn't a school that they targeted. And, you know, and I said, so, you know, I just happened to find you versus you finding me. You didn't come looking for me. And I think that's very important when it comes to corporate America. It's our job as a large corporation to make sure we're looking in the right places. You know, it's unfortunate. Sometimes I hear in the news, it's like, oh, there aren't enough qualified, diverse candidates. And it's just, my heart just shrivels when I hear that, because I'm like, I know so many incredibly bright, diverse candidates. Where are you looking that you can't find these candidates? Obviously, you're looking in the wrong places. So, you know, we have a position of privilege to be in these organizations. And, you know, we have an opportunity to speak on behalf of the community to say, where are you looking? Can we help you find these candidates? Sometimes it's internal. You know, that's the easiest way to start that wave of change. You know, I'm proud to say that at AT&T, I looked at the numbers before I joined the call. We're at a 60-40 breakout at the management level. People of color, 40%, 60% white. And at the front line, we're at 50-50. So, you know, it's good. We're not 100% there yet as to what the numbers that I would like to see. You know, this is a less personal challenge. But it's important that we get there. And I also, you know, feel for Eric when he's saying that he's the only one at his, you know, not, or one of 10 at his corporation. And again, it's great because, you know, he's there and he's making a change and he's moving the ball forward. And he's paving the way for the next person. It'll be easier for the next person of color that comes in because Eric would have already set such a wonderful standard for what he brings to the table. And I think that's important too, is, you know, yes, we carry the load of, you know, paving the way for the next person, but it's so critical because, you know, the whole thing about standing on the shoulders of giants. We're not giants. We're just the person that is like starting to clear the path. We didn't do we're not able to do a perfect job clearing the path. The person behind us has to help us. The person behind them has to help clear the path. Eventually, it'll be a wonderful walking path for everybody to be able to transcend into corporate America. So with that, I know I should have kept it a little shorter, but I'm just so passionate about it.
And you should be, because AT&T has a wonderful record on diversity. We are very, very appreciative of being your partner. And for people who are watching, the fcc.gov site will have resources and what have you available. It's under the ACDDE, that's the Advisory Committee for Diversity and Digital Empowerment. We have our own webpage at fcc.gov. And you're welcome to look at the materials from our panelists here today. So let's go back to the Motion Picture Association. It's always a fascinating industry. And, you know, sometimes I think young people don't think about Hollywood as being, you know, and the studios as being tech companies. Can you talk about, John, what some of the opportunities are and that are tech opportunities available in the industry?
Yeah, thanks, Marita. Actually, all of our studios are tech companies. They're on the leading edge of technology. If you look at VFX, which is visual effects, SFX, special effects, if you look at virtual reality, now starting to get also in AI, I'm sure a lot of our viewers are probably familiar with The Mandalorian on Disney Plus. What they've been able to do, the technology that's been created to, you know, a lot of times in production, when something's happening and you need it's filmed in a studio, but you need to give the appearance that it's set on Mars, another universe, another plane, wherever. In post-production, you add that in. That's your visual effects. But with The Mandalorian, they were able to create technology that's all done right when the filming happens. This is new. And this technology will also be used for the new Batman film. You know, you also have the technology of de-aging actors. If you look at The Irishman with Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, the technology was there. They were playing themselves, but looking 40 years younger than they actually are. It was also in the last episode of The Mandalorian when Luke Skywalker came back, and again, they de-aged him. James Cameron with Avatar, when they had the sequels coming, you know, when he did the first, he had technology that had never been seen. So our studios are constantly looking. Some people on our studios are called futurists, where we're in 2021. Their job is to look at 2026 and beyond. So they're thinking way ahead of what we're thinking. And so I'm pretty excited about what the industry is doing. So again, the major studios are technology companies. Look at animation. Look at Pixar with Soul. You look at what Sony did with Enter into the Spider-Verse, which won an actor, the Black director, won an Oscar for that. But that's all technology. So the animation is a huge thing. And I'm so pleased that one of our partners, the Native American Media Alliance, we're working with Native American teenagers and to teach them the arts and the complexities of animation. We had an animation workshop supporting. So if you can think it, you will see it in our industry. And if I can tag on one more thing about is picking off of what Eric, Don, and Celeste said, it's one thing for companies to recruit from diverse communities. That is so key. But the companies then have to do the hard work of creating an atmosphere of belonging. So yes, we will bring you from Southeast Washington or from rural Mississippi, rural Louisiana, or from New York, from the Bronx. But we have to make sure that you feel like you belong there and that you are you're not in a foreign country. So belonging is a really key part of this whole diversity, inclusion, equity, and belonging. Just imagine if companies, if your place of employment allowed you to bring your complete authentic self, regardless of how you self-identify, regardless of how the government identifies you on identification. However you choose to present yourself to your employer, they allow you to operate as your true self in your fullness. So that then becomes that work could be your safe space. Family may not be supportive, outside folks may not support, but your job is your safe space. Imagine how productive you will want to be, because that's where you can go and get all the support you want. So that's case of belonging. So yes, we definitely have to recruit, but companies also do the hard work inside to make sure that these students from various communities feel like they truly belong and they are part of the organization's culture.
That's absolutely the case. And the theme today does seem to be advice that we're providing has to do with being your authentic self, but making sure that your authenticity is reflected consistently and that your social media reflects the kind of authenticity you want to put out to the world. So we have some audience questions. So I wanted to, this one actually, I think this is one that Eric, we should take offline, because this is someone who is a Air Force vet who has a fintech, a fintech idea for you. So I'll just connect you with them offline. But just, and this can go to anybody. You know, some of the things that we're understanding about young people today have to do with the fact that they're coming into the industry at a time when there's you know, high unemployment. You know, we're in the middle of a pandemic. You know, they're feeling very like isolated at home. What kinds of things can they do now? You know, given that they can't necessarily get out and get an internship, what kinds of things can people do now in order to make themselves better prepared, you know, in terms of having some experience in the industry? Should they be taking coding classes, or should they, you know, just, can you share with me some of the things that people can do now during a pandemic in order to prepare themselves for a job in tech? Anybody can
share an
take.
example, Marita. I'm sharing an example. It was a young brother in Georgia who, I mean, just a master at visual and special effects. And he was able, with the snap of a finger, be multiple different characters. And he tweeted, it was like, you know, my dream is to be Spider-Man. And it went completely viral. And then you have Bob Iger, who's the chairman of Walt Disney. That is as high as you can get. And Walt Disney saying, I now know you. And then you had other folks within the industry like, I now know you too. You know, being at home, there's so much technology within these phones, particularly for folks that are interested in my industry of being content creators. You can do, you know, I did a panel last year called Creating in Isolation. This was a perfect time, and it still is while many of us are still home. That director of photography, that DP, that cinematographer, these folks that you idolize, work on your projects and reach out to them. Reach out, because now you have almost like a captive audience of creators looking for the next best thing. And many of our studios and networks, they have departments where they are combing social media for the next it person, for the next wow factor, for the next person who's going to bring box office gold in Nielsen numbers to either their studio or their network. So really, if you hone your craft, particularly if you're looking and interested in film and TV.
Hey, anybody else have anything?
Yeah, I'm happy to jump in. So attending events such as this during our downtime is such a great use of everybody's time, because, you know, it allows you an opportunity, you know, and for those of you that may not know, a lot of these conversations sometimes happen in person and may not necessarily have been broadcasted, or we would have been traveling and you may not be able to hear from me, but you would have heard from the other panelists. But the fact that we're virtual, we're all able to make the time to share our collective experiences. And so attending these events allows you the opportunity to figure out who's out there and take names and see who you resonate the best with. And hit us up. I mean, you know, you can find us on LinkedIn, drop us a note and say, hey, you know, Celeste, you know, what you said, I agreed or I didn't agree, and I really would like to have a conversation about that. You know, part of who I am, and the reason why I participate in these conversations is because it's important to me to elevate the next generation. And, by having a conversation, I might be able to guide you or give you some lessons learned or best practices, about your own dreams, careers, or connecting with somebody else. But it takes work, right? It takes work. It takes, making that additional effort of connecting with a person and asking the question and saying, hey, would you do an informational interview with me? Can you tell me a little bit more about what it's like to have started at, 26 years ago at AT&T, and how did you get to your current job? Whatever it may be. I think taking full advantage of these opportunities. Don't just let them be something that comes and goes, but rather this is how you build your network and connecting with people, and it'll also help you get more and more comfortable speaking with folks that may not be, in your immediate circle, whether it's academia, whether it's in your school, you'll be talking to people that are already in the marketplace. So that would be my suggestion.
And Maurita, I know our time is wrapping up, but I want to just say, I don't want folks to think that companies aren't necessarily hiring. We are absolutely hiring. During the pandemic, Charter has added jobs in several key places all across America. Go to our website to hear that. And remember, we are tech and telecom companies. If we can't communicate and hire during a pandemic, then something's wrong. So I don't want our folks to believe that, like maybe some more traditional industries where it's a lot more in-person dependent, in these industries, they are hiring and they will do the interviews, and we will use our technology to conduct the interviews and to keep business running. So I don't want any one of our college students or someone who maybe has been displaced in one position and thinking maybe this is God's way of saying maybe it's time for me to look at something different. There are absolutely opportunities in this industry right now.
Thanks so much, Don, for clarifying that, because you're absolutely right. And I think that people do feel like they look at the high unemployment numbers, or they look at the situation that we're in with the pandemic, and it can make people think about waiting. But as you say, you're hiring now. I know that we're big on apprenticeships, so I know that Charter has an apprenticeship program, as does AT&T. And I don't know if Ridgeline and MPA have apprenticeship programs, but those seem like really good ways to get yourself into the tech sector, tech and telecom sectors, particularly now, when there's probably going to be even more demand after we get through this, this situation that we're in now. And then speaking of that, does anybody want to talk? We're getting toward the end, so I want to make sure that you're able to say whatever you want to say, whatever advice you want to give to the audience today, but also if you have any internship opportunities at your particular company. So we're going to use this for like your closing remarks, whatever you'd like to say to the audience, but also share if you have any internship opportunities.
Maurita, for us, we do have an internship program. It's right now pretty focused on those that want to work in Washington on policy. We're looking at one for LA, but all of our studios, every single one of them, they have internship programs. And over this last year, they all did virtual internships, and which actually allowed them to have more, because obviously when you're having them in person on the lots, it's a limited amount. But one of our partners I'm on the board of is the Entertainment Industry College Outreach Program, which houses the highly regarded HBCUs in LA program. So that's www.eicop.org. But also, if you go to motionpictures.org and click under what do we do, the section Advancing Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion has a list of all of our partners. And you can click on all of their sites and get all of the information. But again, Netflix, Paramount, Sony, Walt Disney, Universal, and Warner Brothers, they all have incredible internship programs.
Great, thank you so much. Anybody else? Eric, you want to share your parting words and any opportunities that you're aware of? Maybe not at your company, but just opportunities you might be aware of for internships.
Absolutely. So my company in particular is like on a rocket ship, hiring across the board, internships and hiring across every spectrum of a company that you can think of, from sourcers and talent recruiters to program managers to our legal team to technologists. There's a place for you at Ridgeline if you're interested in finance, and please feel free to reach out to me and find me on LinkedIn in that regard. But in terms of closing remarks, I think it's super apparent, and I hope the audience recognizes just from the panelists that we have here, at this point in time in our country, there's a change happening. Companies and people are looking to diversify, whether it's just purely out of a cultural need, they actually want to, or it's being forced down their throats because we as a society want to see that every table, right? And to represent our people and to make sure that the products that are being produced are available to all of us. I know that's why I work in tech personally. So obviously there are these efforts that, you know, these amazing panelists are looking for people like us to join their companies, but at the same time, we have to make sure we are in a position to be found. That means producing content, producing stories on all of your social feeds about things that you're good at, that you're interested in doing, or positions that you want to do. It's never been easier in our country's lifetime to find someone that can provide you with some information to make yourself a viable candidate for a position that you're interested in. I transitioned to the tech industry and interviewed with every major tech company in the middle of a pandemic, all remotely. It's possible, the jobs are there. Believe in yourself, you're talented, and you can do it.
Thank you, Eric, so much. That's wonderful. Celeste or Don, do you want to have some parting words and then also share where you might have some internship opportunities?
I'll let Celeste go last. We'll save the best for last. I do want to brag about one program we've got at Charter that I'm so excited about. It's relatively new, but it's called Spectrum Scholars. And like I said, the best way to create a program is to create it with people who know how to do it. So we created this 2-year scholarship and professional development program with the American Indian College Fund, OCA Asian Pacific American Advocates, the UNCF, American Indian College, I said them, and the Society of Hispanic Professional Engineers. So great partners who know about education from a very diverse very diverse sectors. And what it is, it's a program designed for rising college juniors with financial need. It's a $20,000 scholarship broken up between their junior and senior year. And what they'll be able to do is they'll be able to come in and work with Charter and get a career with Charter. And so I know that the FCC folks are going to provide more information about how to contact these, get more information about these programs, but it's called Spectrum Scholars. And if you're interested in the program, please look for more information on it. Marita, thank you so much for moderating this panel. And again, I want to thank everyone for inviting me. I have so many great friends on this tech sector working group, from Rosa and Nicole Turner-Lee, and so many great champions and friends who I look up to. And I just want to thank you for all your work that you're doing to make our sector more diverse, more inclusive. And as Eric said, this is a very pivotal point in our history as Americans, and we have to seize the day. We always talk about being woke. We need to be woke, but we don't need to be delirious. We got to get rest sometimes too and figure out strategies to get bigger and better and results. And so thank you, and God bless all of you.
Thank you, Don. Celeste, you have the last word.
I got the last word. Super easy website. Absolutely, we have internships available, and they come. You know, they don't all come at the same time. So keep going back, and it's att.jobs, JOBS. So att.jobs. Trust me, it's a website. Just type it in. It'll take you to our HR. I just wanted to highlight 2 programs that we have, and this is to John's point, is through Warner Media and also CNN. To Warner Media, it's called Elevating Diverse Voices. So if anybody's interested in joining the Warner Media team, once again, Elevating Diverse Voices. And if you're in journalism, our CNN team has a project called Youth Voices Collective. So those 2 programs are part of our Warner Media family. Otherwise, go to the att.jobs, and we have tons not only of jobs, but also internships that would be available to you. So we are, we are also hiring during the pandemic. This doesn't slow us down one little bit. We need you. We need your voice. We need your perspective. We need your authentic self. The more, the merrier. So please consider AT&T as a prospective employer of choice.
Thank you, Celeste. And so we're going to wrap up here. I want to thank our panelists, Celeste Carrasco from AT&T, Don Cravens from Charter Communications, John Gibson from the Motion Picture Association, and Eric Gonzalez from Ridgeline. You all are amazing. I work with all of them and can personally attest to how wonderful they are in this industry. And I'd also like to take a moment before we transition to thank the Federal Communications Commission, Chairman Pai, for rechartering this diversity committee. It has been one of the most wonderful things in my career to be able to actually work directly with the Federal Communications Commission on doing things to increase diversity in this industry. So thank you, FCC. Thank you, panelists. And now I'd like to turn the program over to Rosa Mendoza, who's president and CEO of Alvanza. And she's also the lead for our workforce diversity subgroup, Diversity and Tech Working Group. And she is just an amazing advocate. And I'm turning the program over to Rosa now. Rosa? Do we have Rosa? Okay, let's give her a second. Okay, so do we have Ana Gomez? We have Ana on. Ana is the chair. She is our advisory committee on diversity and digital empowerment chair. She's a partner at Wiley Ryan, and she's representing the Hispanic National Bar Association. I'm going to call Ana up, and can you give us some closing remarks?
Yes.
Ana, thank you.
Thank you, Marita. Thank you for doing such a great job with that panel today. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today. I hope you got some good ideas for ways to get employment to tech and how to mentor and sponsor those who are looking to get employment in tech. I really, really enjoyed today's conversations. Every single speaker was wonderful. I really have to congratulate our diversity in the tech sector working group, which is led by the wonderful Dr. Nicole Turner-Lee, for putting together today's program, and specifically to Rosa Mendoza, Deb Elam, Marita Coley, and Dr. Dominique Harrison for really just a fantastic program. I'd also like to make my thanks to FCC Chairman Pai for his longstanding support of this committee, the Media Bureau, the FCC's IT and Commission meeting room staff, the FCC's Office of Media Relations and the Office of General Counsel, and of course our fantastic 3 J's. I suppose I should make it alliterative. Our just wonderful 3 J's, Jamila Best-Johnson, Jamil Kadre, and Julie Saunier, for your unflagging leadership and support of this committee. And thank you to the participants. Over to you, Jamila. Oh, wait, I see Rosa's on.
Oh,
sorry, Rosa.
There's Rosa. We
Rosa,
need your mic. Okay, introducing Rosa Mendoza. We need your mic, Rosa. You're on mute.
You're still muted. Are you on double mute?
It's technology. Anyway, Rosa is our leader. There, Rosa, are you on now? Okay. So Rosa is our leader, as I mentioned earlier, of our tech working group. She is amazing. She's amazing. She's responsible for our having over 300 people register for this because she's tireless and also determined that the word should go out about this summit. So now I'd like to turn it over to Jamila Best-Johnson, who is the best designated federal officer of the Advisory Committee on Diversity and Digital Empowerment. Jamila?
Thank you, Marita. Well, thank you to everyone who tuned into today's summit. I hope you learned something new. I know that I did. We just had an amazing roundtable of panelists, and I particularly want to give a shout out to our awesome 22-year-old keynote speaker. I think it's the first time I've listened to a 22-year-old keynote speaker, but it was wonderful. Scientist and entrepreneur Kiana Cave. And if you missed Kiana's remarks, let me just give you briefly her big 6 takeaways. Kiana said, number 1, have a mentor every step of the way in your journey. Number 2, participate in science fairs. Number 3, participate in career fairs. Number 4, look at your journey as a long string of right nows. And by that, Kiana meant, what is it that you're doing right now that's going to have an impact on your career? Number 5, join study groups. And lastly, her message was to teachers, teachers don't alienate your students from taking math, science, engineering, tech, or advanced placement courses. I thought that was a really important message. So thank you, Kiana, for joining us today. We also want to thank our talented panelists and experts who shared invaluable information with us. You all have been so generous with your time and with your resources and your information, and we just can't say thank you enough. Thank you also to our ACDDE leadership, our chair, Ana Gomez, who shows up all the time. Whenever we ask her for anything, she's always there. Same goes for our Vice Chair, Heather Gate. Stand up, folks. And Dr. Nicole Turner-Lee, she's a superwoman. She's so busy, but she always joins in. So thank the 3 of you so very much for being with us today. Thank you especially to our Workforce Diversity Subgroup, our lead, Rosa Mendoza, Marita Coley, Deb Elam, and Dr. Dominique Harrison. You all have put in a tremendous amount of time and effort, and as everyone can see, it has paid off wonderfully. Thank you to our wonderful team in the commission meeting room. That's Jeff Reardon, Steve Balderson, Greg Huff, and Ben Thompson. We also want to thank Marlene Jackson of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau for her help. Big shout out to our FCC IT team who worked on this event, Antoine Green, Kamaluddin Mohammed, Aman Sharma, and Shafali Naik. And also from the General Counsel's Office, we say thank you to Margaret Drake and B. Maradi. And lastly, to our Media Bureau team, please first allow me to thank Jamil Kadre, our Deputy Designated Federal Officer. Jamil shepherded this process for this summit from the beginning to today's successful summit. And as you can see, Jamil has done a tremendous job. So we want to thank you, Jamil, for all that you did. Some very long nights. Thanks also to Julie Saunier, our other Deputy Designated Federal Officer for the Advisory Committee. She contributed considerable efforts also in today's successful summit. We want to say thanks as always to our supportive Media Bureau leadership, particularly our Division Chief, Brendan Holland, our Deputy Bureau Chief, Sarah Weitzel, and our Media Bureau Chief, Michelle Carey. Thank you all very much. And finally, we want to say thank you to FCC Chairman Pai for his leadership in rechartering the Diversity Advisory Committee. It's because the committee is up and running that we're able to bring programs like this to the public. So thank you, Chairman Pai. And if you enjoyed and appreciated today's program, please visit our ACDDE webpage at www.fcc.gov. Click on the tab for Advisory Committee, and you can find all the materials for today's summit, as well as our upcoming events. So thank you for joining us today, and be safe. And if Rosa has her mic on, let me turn it over to Rosa so that she can say farewell.
I think I do have it on. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm. Yes, we hear you. Yes.
Wonderful. Problem solved. Well, thank you so much to everyone. Thank you to our wonderful panelists. This has been a great conversation, and I hope it's given each of you something to think about. And even more so, I hope it has given each of you something to do. Some ideas that will help you take concrete steps to move towards a career that is right for you. The skills we have talked about today should be helpful tools that can help you confront the obstacles you will face in your career. But they are not just strengths that you'll need as an individual. They are resources we'll need to build strong communities in a strong country. Don't forget that as you grow and succeed educationally and professionally, you have a role to play in helping those who are coming up behind you. Each of us has strengths and gifts that we can share with our families, our friends, our coworkers, and our community. When people are able to participate fully in our economy, especially, in our economy of innovation, we are all better off. Thank you again to our wonderful, amazing panelists for sharing your wisdom and your years of experience with us. Thank you to the committee members for making this possible, and thank you to each and every one of you for taking the time to join us today. I wish you all the best. Stay safe. This concludes our program.